to hit on them. It's like, no, I work here. You know, you got to do that whole thing.
What?
Oh, I love it. Well, you know, I don't have that icebreaker, man. You're Anyway, man, it's good to have you on, man. It's good. It's been a long time coming.
Yep.
I've been working pretty hard to try to get this shit going, and I'm really, really excited because every conversation so far I've had has been a blast.
Cool.
So it can only be downhill. No, I'm kidding.
Who knows?
Nah, man. Yeah, man. So now it's funny, as I said earlier, this is becoming the Something Magic podcast.
Yeah.
You're part of the Something Magic. You're the core group.
Yeah, apparently so.
Yep.
Yeah.
How's the new act coming along? Have you thought about it?
Well, I kind of react to you say the core group because I turned up to the first Something Magic as a spectator and was really like, wow, that's really cool. I want to be part of that. And I was really jealous. And then I was part of Something Magic 2. I was part of Something Magic 3. I'm now part of Something Magic 4. And I'm introduced as part of a core group. So it's like, awesome. I've penetrated that crowd and I ain't realised that whatever. And I'm getting away with it. So
yeah,
that's
I mean,
cool.
you've done more. I mean, I've done one so far. I was supposed to do two, then I almost caught COVID, which it wasn't actually COVID, but
yeah, but you
couldn't have known.
Yeah, but let's celebrate. You made good choices. So that was cool. That was, yeah. But how's the act coming along? Yeah. Good. I've got something that I'm really comfortable with. I've got something that I'm comfortable with, but in a very sort of new, possibly artistically pretentious presentation, which is a new presentation for it. So I'm interested to see how that goes. And then I'm sitting down with something and just seeing how far I can get with it in the time. And then on the night, I'll see how much I can get away with. So, yeah.
Sounds like you're way further than I am, I'll tell you. I do the classic thing of just putting it off until it's like, oh, fuck, there's a meeting tonight. Shit. And then I just start putting some shit together and try to bring it to the group. I've basically, as far as I've gotten, is you know my premise, right? My premise for this one was I want to do a full mentalism routine, which I don't typically really do.
Uh-huh.
I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down, try to come up with something. I take a look at all my mentalism books. So I put them aside, start looking through them. Oh God. It just seems so uncomfortable. It seems so pretentious. It seems so, just for me,
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay. I look up, I'm like, I remember I had some comedy mentalism, like pamphlets. So I go through those and I'm like, it's just hacky comedy gag after another. It's just trash. I'm like, oh God, I don't have anything. There's some things I found that were like, maybe I'll throw them in just for fun. But I'm pretty, as it usually happens, I'm pretty nervous about it.
Yeah, I think I go for the, like riding on the high off the last one, which was freaking awesome. If you was there, thank you. If you wasn't, you missed out. And I think riding on the high from the last one, I kind of sat down and like, right, let's get sorted and let's find something. And then I realised that I was possibly duplicating the same effect but different version as Morris. So I'm like, cool, that's cool. Give Morris that way, and there's other ideas that I'm working on. I found the stuff that I'm doing, and I found all the resources and tried stuff out. But now it's like, I'm probably going to leave it till the last minute. But that's the joy of working with a team, and hopefully after our chat tomorrow with us all, we get some rehearsals in that will give us the deadline, because at the moment the deadline is the 27th.
Yeah.
And I think me and you would work right up close to the bat on that, wouldn't we?
Yeah. I mean, I would be, you know, the night before being like, oh shit, and start writing, you know, I mean, it's terrible. I mean, I did that all through high school. I think in my last year of high school, I pulled like, and every time I say this number, I feel like it gets bigger. So I'm going to try to be conservative, but I swear I did between 30 and 40 all-nighters like in that year. So I was just constantly sleep deprived, like just perpetually. I remember going to school, passing out on the bus, you know, like it was like quite a long drive because we were quite far away. And then like waking up, oh, we're at school, shit, run to the first class. Like it was just like the one where they called attendance or whatever. So there wasn't an actual class. I'd just sleep through that. Then I'd go to the, you know what I mean? Like I was just constantly perpetually sleeping. And yeah, so I'm like very, very bad at that. If there's no deadline, I will just not do shit. Yeah.
I can remember seeing someone, must have been late 20s, early 30s for me. And I saw someone at 5 o'clock in the office I shared with them. They put their pad there, their pen there. They switched their screen off, said that they've done their to-do list, and they left. And I just sat there and went, how? How do you do that? Like, it just blew my mind that was possible.
Yeah. So it's funny because I find that we're similar in that way. Like we have like similar, and maybe that's why we become very fringe. You know, we go through these like, oh, I'm not going to do the mainstream thing of, because it's more like, it's not that we don't want, at least for me, it's not that I don't want to be an office worker. It's that I fucking can't. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I look at my friends that are like I have a friend who did a law degree, and then halfway through he's like, oh, I'm just going to add computer science to it. And then ended up not even working in law. He finished both degrees, but he ended up not even working in law. He just does programming now. And he just goes to work and just programs away. And then he's like, yeah, man, I love it. You know, and I'm like I don't envy the money that he makes. I don't envy, you know, anything else apart from the fact that he can enjoy this shit. You know what I mean? Like, I just wish I could enjoy something boring as hell, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. And I kind of look at, like, I've done some pretty odd things in the past. Like, one of my first jobs was stuffing envelopes and putting things in envelopes for mailing companies. And then I worked at printers, and that was fun. And then I become a salesman for a print company, and that was kind of a desk job. But because I had finishing and printing experience, I got to go down on the floor and actually do the physical stuff as well. And that, but yeah, I did have that office job, well, that desk job for a wee while.
How was that?
It was like a pair of scratchy underpants. It didn't fit good, and yeah, it didn't work out. And yeah, and from that experience, it's like, nah, I'm definitely not. I knew I weren't that person. And the person that employed me and I put in that position did me a lot of favors and did me a lot of great stuff. And it was a great experience. But I realized it wasn't for me. And yeah, like, I'm dyslexic. So dyslexia is the traits of dyslexia is we struggle with words. So anything written, so either writing it, reading it, speaking it, even hearing it to some things and processing it. It's like we don't go down the neurotypical route, and we do things in unusual ways.
So how, like, what's the difference between, I mean, obviously it's hard to, you know, it's almost like when I explain ADHD to a neurotypical person, I almost don't have a frame of reference of what a neurotypical experience is. Like, I understand, I can see it outside, I can see it externally, but I can't figure out what their internal experience is, that they can just do shit. Like, I only know my own experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can sort of give vague things like, you know how this happens to you sometimes? Well, that happens to me all the time or whatever. But it's like, I still don't have a real point of reference to fully explain and compare the two states because I've never had a different state. No. But if you were to somehow go down that route, I mean, I know it's very difficult. How would you, because I've always just, you know, you hear about it, you hear dyslexia.
Yeah.
And it's just, you can't write. Like you jumble your words. Mm-hmm. But like, obviously that impacts you probably in a, you know, that issue with the processing probably impacts you in other scenarios or in other ways as well, right? Like your mental states or your ways of interfacing with the world.
Yeah. I really like what you say about like people asked us to explain it, but like we're sitting somewhere else. We don't understand where they're sitting and they don't understand where we're sitting. And somehow we're supposed to make sense of all of this. Like it's really hard. And
bring that mic a little closer.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
Yeah. If you sit away, just bring it with you.
Oh, yeah.
It's fine.
Sure. And I think the other thing to bear in mind, again, I don't know about this as much with ADHD, but I know it's similar, is two dyslexics can be different. So they're both dyslexic, but they're both different. And what I do is I explain to people purely about me. So I can read and process that information fairly okay. I can read it, and that I do have a reading age of probably about 11 or 12-year-old. But if I read something, I'm a little slow than someone of my age would be. But the knowledge goes in. Now, if you ask me to read something here and ask me about it, I'll probably be like that. It comes straight out. If you ask me to write about it, it's a train wreck. The words, the information from here to the hand, and remembering the shapes to make all go right. This is working way faster than this. I start getting anxious. So now this just catches fire and decides it's going to work faster to push this along. And this decides to have a meltdown. And that is my thing with dyslexia. Right. It's getting that information out in a written form, which is an issue.
The way you're describing it makes me picture like the way my parents now they've sort of got a lot better with technology, but I remember initially, right? Like, I mean, a few years ago, if I got my dad to type something, he'd have to go A, N, D, like just one finger, you know, they'd be typing with one finger, looking for the next letter. So it's almost like the way you're describing it, it's almost like you're having to process individual letters in a word. Like, you know, like when I think of a word and I'm writing it, I think the word and like subconsciously my subconscious takes over for writing that full word. I don't have to think letter by letter by letter, right? So if I had to think letter by letter, I assume then it would break up my processes for thinking about the concepts or the words that I'm trying to write or anything else at a bigger scale, right?
Yeah.
Is that somewhat accurate?
Yeah, that's close. And like, you know, it's like you explained your dad. He's trying to remember the pattern and the order of the keyboard. And that is what the block is.
Yeah.
Whereas the block for me is somewhere in here, which is different to everybody else. So I'm just checking what I'm going to say is correct. If I agree with it, is my keyboard in my head set differently to everybody else's? And I think it is.
Right.
And now and then, how I connect and move around that is where the and as soon as that starts, everything starts to slow down.
And then you have emotional reactions based on,
And, there's like, how can I make this, like me writing turns into a freaking train wreck. Handwriting is a train wreck. But my hand-to-eye coordination and my skills with my hands, I can juggle, I can manipulate, I can paint. So, like, I've got the control there, but my writing's... but give me a computer that I can talk to, sweet. If I can talk to it and it types, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
If it's got a keyboard...
Because now you're thinking in whole words. You're not having to process shapes and process these individual
Give me a keyboard and a computer, that's good. And the spell check is freaking awesome.
Oh, nice.
But even weirder, we bought an old typewriter, and it was a Recon typewriter and stuff. And I can even process stuff quicker out on the typewriter, and people around me that know my quirks, like my wife, she can read and interpret my handwriting, but when it's a real train wreck, there's just nothing there.
Can you read it back afterwards, or it's gone?
I can, but sometimes I can't. And sometimes it is like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But normally, if I can pick up the words before, I remember what I was talking about, and then I can say, that word is cauliflower. Mm-hmm. I've only said cauliflower because there was a shopping list incident the other day and stuff. But on a typewriter, I can type everything out. Things ain't spelt correct, but people that know me can read it far better than my handwriting, and even people that don't know me can read it and go, I know what it means, just that there's no full stops and every fifth word is spelled incorrectly.
Right.
But it's like, if I handwrite that, you wouldn't be doing so well.
Right. So, okay, let me ask you this, right? So with ADHD, at least in my experience, and it's same thing with ADHD, right? There's two official classifications. They've changed it a bunch. Yeah. They don't even use ADD anymore. They use ADHD PI or ADHD PH. Yeah, which is primarily inattentive or primarily hyperactive. And these are like two sides of the spectrum, but you can sort of have overlap as well. So some people get double fucked. Yeah. But they get both. I'm more on the inattentive side, so I don't have problems with standing still as much, even though I bite my nails and I have all these quirks. But like my dad, for example, you try to get him to sit still somewhere. He'll go in a public setting and he'll talk for people 2 minutes, like he'll talk to someone for a minute. The craziest icebreaker, instant friends sort of type of person. But then after a minute, he gets bored and goes to the next person. Bored, next person. I'm just like looking at him like, this is exhausting, man. Like, for me, the initial, the initial minute with like the kind of shallow conversation is the things that I don't like the most. You know what I mean? Like that's what really drains me actually. But for him, it's just, he just needs to be going, go, next. I don't have that. I just can't concentrate. So my mind starts wandering, I start to, and I actually think we were talking about the headphones. Yeah. I think the headphones lock me in, which I'm actually really enjoying because I can hear myself, I can hear you, and it's like, we're right here. There's nothing else going on, Anyways, it's a bit of a tangent. Yeah. But for me, ADHD, it has its negatives, but there's also some things like, which arguably are from the autistic spectrum, the obsession. I can hyper focus on something and get obsessed, and I'll make more progress. I'll outwork anyone in an obsession. Like if I'm obsessed about something, I will take on the challenge to outwork anybody in the world. You know what I mean? But the problem is I can't control the obsession. So sometimes it'll just derail, and all of a sudden I should be doing this, but I'm like 14 hours deep on rebuilding my new board game box. It's just it's uncontrollable at points. So there's positives, but obviously the negatives outweigh it. But there's still these like sort of superpowers that it gives me sometimes. Do you find that it affects, like dyslexia affects, are there any positive things that you've like, or do you think that it's shaped you in a way like maybe your magic or maybe something that makes you think differently about things?
I see dyslexia as a gift, and I see it as an incredible thing. And the negative side of dyslexia is when people have got dyslexia and they can't explore that side of them, and they're being kind of, they're either not aware of it or they're just sitting there going, I'm different, or I'm not them. What's wrong with me? And that's a dreadful place to be. And in my past, I've been labelled as sort of slow, uninterested, not working hard enough, and stuff like that. But
Amen. Amen.
yeah. There's going to be a lot of neurodiverse people going, yeah, that sounds familiar. But the thing is like the positives of it is like, I don't know. I have this creativity, but I think what makes you creative is when something is seen as different. So now if we talk about this neurotypical thing, which, you know, I kind of feel is
it's a strange term because what is typical?
Yeah, I think it's a myth. This is going to sound random. I may explain this, I may not. When I was in a locked mental institute ward in Australia, the therapist there said to me, normal only exists on the washing machine. I was actually there as a visitor. I wasn't there as an inmate, honest.
That's a start to a bit, to a comedy bit right there.
But like people go from A to B and they go in a straight line. I and most dyslexics may kind of walk to B in a wiggly line wearing a hat with ears, you know, like whatever. We do it differently. And that, I think, is what gives us the creativity. And the other thing is I feel that I have a different viewpoint on the world, because what everyone sees as the way and what's there and what's normal, want of a better word, it's like, well, no, it's interesting, it's different. Or it's like, I see something else there. Or I look at it thinking, oh, that's strange. You know, and I think it really does give us that ability to look and interpret stuff differently. And, you know, one thing I can remember is being in a training room, and there was a set of exercises we had to do. And one of them I breezed through, and everyone else in the room struggled. And everyone went, oh, you did that really well, Alan. And I went, yeah. And in my head, and I spoke to someone from afterwards, I said, like, you know, filling that form in that was being passed around with her name and the other information at the beginning of the day was the most stressful thing for me. For everyone else, that was just something you do in 30 seconds. It was really stressful for me. I felt I had to do it in 30 seconds. And I took 40 seconds and I got it out and I got it done. But it was stressful for me. This exercise was freaking weird, but it was fun. And they're like, oh no, it was really stressful because it didn't make sense. And the clues said this and this said that. And
you're like,
and
I live in that world, baby.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. It's like, yeah, it was just another clusterfuck for me. It was just another weird pile of nuts, you know. It was just, yeah, that's my everyday. And someone actually said to me, thank you for that, because I've always wondered what it was about and what went on. And now I've seen you sit and easily do an exercise that everyone else has struggled with. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I think things like that are the gifts of dyslexia and gifts of these things. You have the ability to interpret the world differently, and because you are just going down different routes, you're going to come up with different answers. And yeah, I get obsessed by stuff. I get ridiculously focused on stuff. I've got notebook on my phone. I've got the camera on my phone, but I'm usually never far away from a notepad and some paper, because if an idea gets in here, that's it. There's nothing else exists. And I've got to get that idea out on a piece of paper for a sketch, a drawing, a word. It might even just be a set of numbers. And I put it down. Now that piece of paper just sits there. The brain can now think about keeping a relationship, shopping, and whatever. But as soon as I pick that piece of paper up again, it's like, bang, I'm back. And that. But yeah, if I ain't got a piece of paper,
it's like freeing up mental RAM, right?
Yeah. It's like, the old computers that used to only be able to do one job at a time and you used to program them. It's a bit like that, but it's in the sense of, you get obsessed and you can't leave your idea down. But as soon as it's on a piece of paper, I refer to it as sort of neurons to molecules. As soon as it becomes a physical thing, I can leave it there and think about something else.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, like it took me a while because I got diagnosed really late. I was in my last year of high school, 18. Because, I mean, for me, until I had a, super strict upbringing, my mom was like, typical Eastern European parent. You got to be the best. I don't give a fuck. You got to hustle. You got to study. You got to do this. So for most of my schooling life, I was breezing through everything, getting away with doing all-nighters and leaving it to the last moment and cramming, I mean, I remember in in my speech, in my last year, like English class last year at school, I finished writing the speech as my name got called up to go and tell the speech. And so I basically and I did decent. I got a merit on it. So, so like I could do all these things. But then I think at that point, towards the end of high school, that's when the material became hard enough that I couldn't really just rely on my working memory, to just cram the night before. And so I went and got diagnosed and all this stuff. But for the longest time, I saw it as like, God damn it, why the fuck do I got this shit? Like it's because everything starts to click. You go, oh, and that's why I was like this. And that's why, growing up, I struggled with this and that. And that's why I felt different. And until then you just think I'm a weirdo, like, because you just have no explanation as to why people don't seem to connect with you or why you seem to never, like in a group setting, people are laughing and you've zoned out. So you have no idea why people are laughing. And so now you got to somehow, that juggle that dynamic. And so there was a lot of these moments where I felt weird and I didn't know why, and for a few years after I got diagnosed, I was very angry about it. I was very kind of frustrated at the world, and it came, over time I started appreciating the positives, and I started appreciating wait, this is the thing that I have over everyone else that no one else has. There's this really big YouTuber. I don't know if you've ever seen, you've probably seen his videos at some point on YouTube, called his channel's Daily Dose of Internet.
Oh, yeah.
He makes really short videos every day, like really interesting animal videos or whatever viral videos are going on. And he kind of cuts them together and just posts like a minute videos. And there was an interview he did, and he's got ADHD. And he talked about how he used his ADHD to, I guess, win the market, because when he edits, he will look at a video, and for most people, they don't have a dopamine deficiency, which is the working theory. But I mean, there's probably much deeper complex issues than just dopamine deficiency. But let's say like you're dopamine starved, right? That's kind of a simplification of ADD. So to most people, they're perfectly happy to watch whatever the fuck, because they're just okay. They're just baseline satisfied. But to an ADHD person, things become boring quick, right? So what he does is he watches a video, and as soon as he notices his brain shift, he goes, oh, this part's not interesting, cut, right?
Wow.
So he uses exactly what his brain does to cut to the most important, interesting parts of the videos. And so that's why they're so short. That's why, so in a culture, in a society where attention spans are getting shorter based on the type of content, where, the TikToks, the reels, everything's getting, fast food entertainment, right?
Yeah.
To have a predisposition to that type of brain makes you much better at doing that type of content.
Absolutely.
So when I heard that, I really sort of reframed my view on it. And I'm like, yeah, that's true, and in conversation as well, if I notice myself, and not that I'm getting bored, but I'm just saying, if I notice my mind start to wander, I go, okay, what's interesting about the last 30 seconds we talked about, and what's not interesting about the next 10 that we just entered in. So I navigate back to the interest, I mean, we don't know yet because the episodes aren't out. I could be very terrible at this, but but
I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah, it's great. So I've sort of learned to appreciate the benefits as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with you. And there was something you were saying at the beginning of that I was trying to hang on to remember, but you were saying about just that general feeling of seeing stuff differently and that processing of stuff, and that thing about that guy really interests me. He's using what he has as a way of editing and speaking to the world around it, and I think it's very interesting of how much. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how much he cuts out of stuff and how much people still interpret that thing the same way.
Yeah, I've actually, because there was a couple instances where I've seen the full video.
Yeah.
And, before he edited it, I would just watch a viral video and then it would end up being on one of his episodes. And I was actually surprised that he cut so much, And so, but he's done this a long time. So the thing is, once you edit that's the thing about even for this podcast show, editing the reels, I don't have any reference point because I haven't posted a bunch of reels yet. So I don't have a reference point of which types do well, which types don't do well. Mm-hmm. Like with the reaction videos, I could already tell, oh, this one's going to be big. I had a sense, I had a feeling because I've done hundreds of those types of videos.
Yeah.
But so he's done the same thing, but for that exact type of format. So he just has that exact kind of attuned, understanding of what's going to do well and what's not going to do well.
Cool. Yeah. Flipping back a bit because that's how my mind works. But you was talking about how you felt a frustration and did you say an anger when you was
100%?
Yeah. So I was I'm sitting here as a 47-year-old person now and that. But when I was at school, I was struggling because, again, when I wrote the information down, it wasn't coming out. But when I spoke about it, I was freaking shit hot. But then, because the writing wasn't that was my weak point, that was my Achilles heel. Every time I was tested, the reading and the writing was my weak point. When I was tested, I was being put in lower sets.
Mm.
But the thing is I was put in the wrong set.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't get the information out. And it was an English teacher. And I must have been about 14. Yeah, 14. It was the last 2 years of secondary school in the UK. And a teacher set us a task, an English teacher, and I went in with a book at the end of our holidays and I said, look, I've read this for the amount of time you said each day, but I'm still only halfway through the freaking book. Then she said, well, just keep reading it, you catch up, we're going to work through it. Cool. And then halfway through that project, she called me to one side and she goes, "Have you ever heard of dyslexia?" And I'm like, "No." She's like, "Well, the way you talk in class about the information is incredible. It's a phenomenal level. How you write about it is way below." And like she goes, "It's way below where you're at, where you should be at, and it's way below. But the difference between how you speak about it and how you write about it is scary." Mm-hmm. And she goes, "And that is a trait to dyslexia, this wide difference."
How old were you when this was?
Well, that was when I was 16, or like 14, 16, around that time. But the thing is that was it. This word was thrown at me. Nothing was done about it. Nothing was there. There was no framework for me to go and be tested.
There's no treatment for it, is there?
Not really.
Right.
Remind me about treatment in a bit. I'm on tangents already.
Sorry.
No, it's good. So like, I was on this thing and I just went off and did, like, I was never tested for dyslexia. I didn't really know what it was. And then all through my life, people that met me and that would mention this word dyslexia again. Again, I still had no idea what it was. We didn't have the internet then. There wasn't really places to go. And it was just very sort of like, hey, whatever that means. And then I worked at a printer's and one of the manager's partner was dyslexic. Mm-hmm. And then through that, I started to understand what dyslexia was. But it wasn't until I was working at the Science Museum in London, aged 29, that I actually got sent, and it was a sort of right to access kind of. There was this real sort of disability access bill passed in the UK. So every building had to be accessible by someone in a wheelchair. But in the same rights, I don't need a ramp to access my work, but I might need a bit of software that I can speak to my computer and it helps me. So through that, I was tested for dyslexia. And at the time, the average test cost around about £300 to £400, which is a lot of money. So that's a barrier. You have to have it done by a special person in a special place, which I find a bit odd, but there we go. And then I went and had this test, and some beautiful things happened in that test. First of all, they have all these sort of skill requirements, and then they have weak and strong, and then they have a shaded line down the middle that was average. And every cross, and they almost went alternative, every cross was either at the really strong or the really weak. And at the end, she showed me this thing and explained it to me. And I went, "Are you telling me that I am scientifically proven as not being average in any way?" And she laughed and went, "Yeah." And then there was this moment where we both looked at each other and she could just tell. I was like, this is freaking awesome. I'm not average in any way. and it makes sense. It's there in this crazy ass zigzag line across this page. And it was freaking amazing. And then I went in and showed all my work colleagues this and explained it to them. And they've already been amazing, helping me out. Now and then allowing me to go, well, I know this way makes sense for you, but it's never going to freaking work for me. Someone can do my work for me, or we do it a way that's slightly harder for you, but it's going to be the way I can almost manage it. And they do all of that. Other times, I just had to suck it up and be a grown-up. There is an aspect of that as well. But you need people that can support you and help you around that. But when I was explaining this and explaining it all, this girl, Deanne, just turned around, that I'd been working with, this woman, Deanne, just turned around and went, so we've just spent £300 to be told this. I just looked at her. I'm like, I love you. Because she got it.
Right.
She got it without the test. She saw me as this person that, did things differently. And, we all kind of, again, maybe I'm dyslexic and all that stuff. But, that was incredible. And your question about, is there treatment for it? Nah. Like, there is no priest in this land that can freaking pry it out of me. Like, there's nothing that can be done. What can be done is an understanding and coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
And I presume it's similar with ADHD.
So ADHD, they have obviously medication you can try. I went through a bunch of it, and you're basically, I mean, let's be fucking real right here, right? You just become a crackhead. That's really what it is. You're taking fucking stimulants, methamphetamine. In some countries, I think in America, in some states, they literally prescribe methamphetamine, like literally the exact name. And so I went on Ritalin, which was like the methylphenidate based products, stimulant, very hard crashes. You'd get anxious, at least for me. People have different reactions, but I get super anxious on the crashes, depressed, start questioning my whole shit. So we go, okay, I've tried a bunch. For some reason, they kept trying to push this methylphenidate stuff. So they tried a bunch of different types because I'm sure they subsidize and they get money for it. That's a whole nother thing with the pharmaceutical companies. But then I went on dexamphetamine, which is just a really clean speed, basically, amphetamine. Which was a lot better. It's slightly more euphoric, which I think they tried not to go for it because it has a higher abuse potential. But for me, stimulants just aren't very likely to be abused just because, not to say that I've never used them in non-school environments, you know what I mean? Like I've obviously, partied and like, oh, I'm sleepy, let me take, whatever. But it's just like, realistically speaking, it's just like as soon as I use it for more than 3 days in a row, I just start getting I start struggling to eat, struggling to sleep, which all leads to just depressive symptoms, and it just spirals out of control. And it makes me feel so bad that I'm really not gonna abuse them, just because I have a prescription that I haven't even used for I don't know a year now, just because it makes me feel like shit. So I can be productive for 3 days and then have a terrible time afterwards, which is not a good trade-off. You know what I mean? Recently I've been playing around with, and you know this, I've been playing around with this what's it called? Modafinil, which is it was kind of a big fad a few years ago on the internet about smart drugs. But really what it's used for is narcolepsy. So they use it it's like a non-stimulant stimulant that they basically give to people that have narcolepsy and keeps them awake. And a big part of my issue with attention is that I have a sensation of getting sleepy. So there's almost like a physical, I want to take a nap when I'm bored. So if I have homework, I had homework to do, I'd literally just start yawning, all the things that come with sleepiness. And so for some ADHD people, modafinil seems to be pretty useful for that aspect. It doesn't help with motivation as much, but it does with that. And I've been playing around with it. It's not good to mix with caffeine, which I made that mistake before one of our rehearsals, and I crashed so hard.
No comment.
Yeah.
What happens at Something Magic?
It stays at Something Magic, let's put it that way. But when I haven't mixed it with caffeine, it was actually quite useful, and it doesn't have the crazy, I can still eat on it more or less. It doesn't have the crazy, as far as I can tell, but I only use it on days where I'm okay, I have very specific tasks to do. I need to do this mundane thing over and over and over and over. Let's say I have edited a bunch of content and I need to put subtitles on it. And like, I know that's going to be 8 hours of putting subtitles to clips. Like that's no creativity, it's just boredom and doing this repetitive task. Then I'll take it. Yeah. But if there's a creative aspect, it doesn't help because I get locked into ideas instead of being able to zigzag and come back and, use my usual creative process. So, I think like it can be useful for very mundane tasks, but for me, like any other thing is really not useful. Also, stimulants, because I train martial arts like almost every day. If I take it in the morning, then it's like there's a residual stimulation that's in the evening where I go train, and my cardio just completely, like I feel like I'm 300 kgs, like just barely walking up the steps, because my heart rate's going overdrive. I'm high heart rate already, and then I'm doing crazy cardio training. So it's just too many negatives to really. So I'm in the same boat. I've been just trying to figure out coping mechanisms. Yeah. And like on days where I feel the obsessive impulse, I just use that shit to the full extent, even if it means like negating sleep or other things, because I know I can't control it. So if it's aligned with what I need to do, fucking jump all aboard. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Like I say, I like if anyone knows or thinks different, like just flick us comments. But yeah, there's not a medication for dyslexia. There's not like a physical treatment as such, but it is those coping strategies. But another thing I've looked into is so you have your thing, dyslexia, but then there seems to be these other things around it. And you see a lot of people wear tinted glasses or use tinted screens, and it's all to do with an eye condition that isn't dyslexia, but a lot of dyslexics have it, or a version of it.
Comorbidities.
Yeah, and for me, when I read a line of text, the line underneath starts to dance, and the colours separate, so the black becomes all these different colours, and that's really freaking annoying. And that. So when
sounds like a light acid trip all the time.
Yeah, but without the acid. But when I read a book, when I'm buying a book, I will open it and look at it, and the first thing I look at is the font that is used, the ink that is used, and the paper that it's on. And that tells me if I can read it or not. And that. But yeah, so there's all that kind of other stuff that goes with it. And one of the other things is it seems as if people with dyslexia, do have this thing where they get bored. But then, because we're a bit addicted to stuff and we get obsessed with stuff, we want to keep going. But when something give us a peak, we want that peak. But we're bored. And so now we need more to get the same peak. So I would not really want to be on any form of medication because in my past, I've experimented with all sort of substances. And yeah, I'll have one of those, please. I'll have two of those, please. I'm bored of this now, so next week I'll try two of those, and I'll have three of those. Or I'm now really bored, so I'll have one from what I had last week, two from what I had the week before, and a bottle of scotch, please. And it was messy. And then, like, I don't mind admitting this, I had an issue with alcohol. It was about seeing how much I could drink. And like, where in the world you are,
Yeah. The UK.
It depends how you get things. So in America, I'd have been seen as a screaming alcoholic. In the UK, I was seen as a one-man party, But then I started to not find myself funny. And that's when I stopped.
And like, how was that process? Did you go like just by yourself, or did you have to go into like AA or?
It was like so So experimenting with other substances, leaving alcohol out of this for a bit, that just wore off and become aware that it wasn't necessarily a good idea. There's a few things happening around us that was a bit like, oh, okay, like people hitting the wall, people dying, and some crazy shit was happening. And I can remember sitting with a group of mates and we literally were like, we can't keep doing this. And we left that table, and some of us ain't seen each other since. And I've been in touch with a few people, but there was this space of, no, we needed to walk away. And that was years ago.
That's a crazy like self-aware group of people, man.
Yeah.
That's not your average. I mean, again, you're not average.
Yeah.
But like, because I mean, I come from you could say a long line of alcoholics. And I think ADHD, same thing, very, very addict behavior driven. And obviously, if you're always looking for fun, like my grandparents my granddad on my dad's side was, since the age of 14, just like a nonstop, every day, all day sort of guy. I mean, my dad has stories of when he was 14, getting someone knocking on his door, like, your dad's passed out by the train tracks, go and drag him, and he would have to go and lift him up and drag him home, and just like throw him under the tree. It's like, sleep there for a while, So, and he from that experience, he, I think he had, like, drank a little bit when he was like 19 or whatever, but from that experience, he doesn't drink at all, and he's very, very against any sort of substance use because he's seen how much that can fuck someone up. For me, I guess because I didn't have that experience, I think, like, if you grow up with someone like that, you either become like them or you get pushed on the complete other side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a way to be, you know what I mean? So I understand that like that aspect, but for me, I obviously grew up with no substance use. My parents don't drink at all, partly because of religious reasons, partly because of that. And so for me, it was almost like the examples I had were from like people, friends, and other like adults in my life here, which weren't necessarily like bad examples. You know what I mean? Like, it was quite a okay use, I would say. And like growing up, we experimented with a bunch of different stuff, from psychedelics to, marijuana to alcohol, blah, blah, blah. But I've always managed to keep it, the psychedelics, I find that, you do a strong session and you don't want to do it again for 3 months because Jesus Christ, that was you know what I mean? Like, you brings up some darkness, you got to deal with it, Yeah. So for me, I know people get addicted to anything, but for me, like, the psychedelics were never necessarily a addictive potential. The alcohol makes me terrible at martial arts. So, I'll have like, a drink here and there or a couple of drinks here and there. But if I have 3 drinks on a Friday, my cardio sucks on a Monday. Like, it has that much effect. Yeah. I can feel it. If I'm competition ready and I can go 10 rounds, by the 7th round, if I drank 3 drinks on Friday, by the 7th round, I feel like shit. Because if you redline your body, then you start to notice all these little things. But if you never do it, if you just like, you don't work out, you don't like, you're not going to feel the difference because you don't push it to the limit to know where the limit is. So because I do this a lot, I just don't like to drink because I don't like to get fucked up the next Monday.
Well, you've already give your body something hard to process, the alcohol. Your body struggles to process alcohol, and you're poisoning your body. However much you drink, alcohol just does that. And then it affects a whole heap of shit. And then, you're working your body hard physically. One thing I will say, like you kind of said about that, like, if you're not redlining your body, you won't know the issue. How I gave up drinking was mainly to do with me being aware that there was something up and what I was doing wasn't cool. But what really helped me was a change of circumstances. So the friendship, the relationships and the opportunities I had at my 9 years of working at the Science Museum was fantastic. And because of that and because of other things, my social life was quite dangerous and like freaking awesome fun. But when I left, all those habits was no longer there. I weren't leaving work. I wasn't doing this. And me and my wife, we left. We went to Spain. We walked across Spain on the Camino de Santiago, 795 kilometers across Spain.
Jesus.
We volunteered in India.
How long did that take?
Weirdly enough, 40 days and 40 nights. So if you're religious, that means something to you. It was a complete sort of weird thing.
Did you eat locusts and shit, or?
No, we was eating we was eating the beautiful Spanish food of that area, and those areas, and yeah, it was incredible. But like my habits changed. I was still drinking on that thing. Like red wine was aplenty. Like there's even a freaking red wine fountain that you can fill up on and shit like that.
I think I've seen this actually.
Yeah,
recently.
crazy.
It was a viral video I saw.
Yeah, crazy shit. Like it's just awesome and it's good. But then when we ended up in New Zealand. My wife's a Kiwi, so we ended up back in New Zealand, staying with her mum at Christmas 2010. She's a Methodist, and because of her history of alcoholics around her and around the family and in the family, there was alcohol's okay, but it's not. And so habits just changed. I wasn't around it in the same way. We was trying to live on as little money for as long as possible. So, alcohol is expensive. So I cut it. But the bit about redlining your body, I helped out at an event. I helped set up. I did some serving of drinks, did some walk around magic and stuff. And at the end, the guy said, look, take this. And he gave me a bottle of wine. I'm like, sweet, bottle of red wine. Awesome. I went home and drank it. And I drank the whole bottle because that's what you do. Like, you don't leave half a bottle lonely in your front room before you go to bed. That's just wrong. I woke up the next morning with freaking this feeling inside of me, this heartburn feeling. And it was horrible. And then I remembered I used to feel like that a lot. And I used to sit on the bus on the way to work a lot, feeling like that. And I was like, oh, shit. Nah. Nah. And that was a real change. And like, I've not drunk alcohol in any form or any way in 10, 12 years now.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, like, it's quite, 10, 12 years, I haven't touched a drop. And, like, if I go to a church and they're doing communion and it's alcohol, I'd miss it. If it's alcohol or grape juice, I'll make sure I pick the grape juice and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, to cut back to what, the whole list of substances and whatever, not to paint I don't want to paint myself as a fucking, self-controlled, I got I can try anything and it's all good. That's not what I'm saying, because the marijuana, on the other hand, so the stimulants make me feel like shit, don't want them. The alcohol makes me feel like shit. I'll have it occasionally. I'll have a tiny bit. I don't push past 2 drinks unless it's like my birthday. Or like for example, Ivan's podcast. He left for the UK, so we got a bit fucked up. It is what it is. But like generally speaking, like I'm gonna train. Like I don't have time for feeling like shit. And the problem is when you're training, people are trying to choke you. People are trying to kill you in a way, right? And I don't like that. I prefer like the 120 kg guy not to fucking choke me, So if I can help it, I will, So anyway, but the marijuana doesn't affect me in any negative way in those senses, right? And so it's very easy to just kind of slippery slope. Just have one today, have one tomorrow, no effect on the cardio. I don't really feel like shit. Yeah, it's a bit harder to wake up in the morning, but it is what it is. And before I know it, I'm like on a streak. I'm having it every night. and my mood's starting to change. I start to feel like these fluctuations, and like really what I realized is like because there's a lot of things that are difficult about living with ADHD, right? That you need a coping mechanism because there's fucking things that are hard, right? Like it's not, so I had a tendency, and I noticed this in myself, I have a tendency to use that substance in particular to escape. Right? Because it's so much easier not to deal with this shit. And the thing that I actually recently read about, well, it was semi-recently, was that they've found that like marijuana improves focus. It can actually boost your focus, but it reduces memory. Now, I've had a shit memory since as long as I can remember, right? I mean, I remember in school when we had like a grid with times tables, and they would jumble up the numbers on the X's, and you'd have to fill out the grid as fast as possible, and there would be a competition. I'll be always last because I just couldn't memorize and like reproduce memory stuff. I've always sucked at it. It's just a thing. It takes me like months to remember a new phone number. It just is what it is. So I'm like, I don't really value memory anyway. You know what I mean? I've learned to deal without it. So, but attention, focus, fuck, I need that shit. Yeah. And so there's a double whammy where it helps me focus. I can sit down and do 3,000 reps of this of a fucking second deal. No problem. I don't even have, you know what I mean? Whereas if I'm sober, it's like I start getting distracted. I want to do this. I want to do that. And so there's a self-medicating aspect, and then and that's fine. I actually don't mind that. It's the escape. As soon as I have a problem that I don't want to deal with and I get high, now I have a problem with that. Like now I don't like that. You know, and like anyone that says marijuana isn't addictive, I know people that don't get addicted by it. I know people that are everyday smokers. They just stop and they're like barely get any withdrawal. Yeah. I get cold sweats. It's a problem. So, you know, I've basically, I don't know how long it's been, but like a few months now, I just like, I have touched it, but I haven't bought any. Like if someone has some, I'm not going to say like, no, it's not like a thing that I'm like abstinent, but I also just am very, very careful, like not to try to use it to escape, because then it leads to that path of like only, you know, your dopamine receptors get so fucking pushed down because you're escaping all the things you don't want to do. You're only doing fun stuff. And then it just becomes, your motivation starts to crash, and it's all a matter of misuse. But because I have this tendency, I'm going to misuse it, you know?
Yeah.
And so like, I totally understand what you mean. And it's funny how different substances will, you know, like I have no problem with like, you know, I know someone would, if they take a stimulant, they're hooked, you know, whereas I could not see myself get hooked. It's so shit, like, you know? So yeah, it's very interesting. I actually recently read a book by Gabor Mate, which is a Hungarian guy, Hungarian PhD, I think psychiatrist. And he deals with like junkies, like heroin addicts and stuff. And it's called Hungry Ghosts. Very interesting book. And it gave me like, you know, it's a little bit on the extreme side. I'm not like an addict on that level, but it gave me a lot of insight into that, you know, and into my own use. And it's like, yeah, what am I running away from? You know, why do I feel the need that I can't face whatever it is? You know, why do I feel the need to hide behind this old, you know, this haze really, you know?
But I think, and science backs this up, and there's research. Addiction and being addicted to something comes in many forms. So a substance, the way it interacts with our body and what it does and the feeling it gives, makes that substance addictive. So smoking, like I used to smoke cigarettes, normal cigarettes, and yeah, you're putting something into your body. But the hard thing about smoking is if you take too much nicotine in one go, you're going to freaking hate it.
Yeah.
But if you don't get enough, you're not going to enjoy it. So you've got to keep that level constantly topped up. And that's why nicotine is a very small dose, but you take lots of them.
But you know what's weird though?
And you smoke. So that's the addiction. But yes, there are substances that are addictive and not addictive. And apparently cannabis fits into that. But do you know what else is coming in your cannabis? That's a whole nother conversation everyone knows their dealer and everyone knows that their dealer's straight and it's all good. So, we'll worry about that another day. But you can get addicted to anything.
Yeah.
If you have to do something, if you have to have something, if you have to have bread with your soup, that in its own way becomes a form of addiction because you have to have it. It makes that complete. And I feel, again, and science supports, is anything can have that addiction. And people, all these things that say this is addictive, that ain't addictive, this behaviour is this behaviour is that. Science hasn't got all the answers. It's only one way of understanding the world around us. And all that testing is done on, let's say, these people that ain't neurodiverse, that are neurotypical. So now there's all these other monkeys like us dancing around.
The outliers, how do you test for those? Yeah.
That it's like, well, actually, what isn't addictive for them might be different for me.
Yeah.
And like I said, I know something really excites me and then it becomes boring very quickly.
Yeah, I feel that. Now, I wonder because, when I talked about these obsessions with my psychiatrist, he was like, oh, yeah, that's just comorbidities with autism and this is a whole spectrum there. And yeah, it's easy. We just sweep it under the rug. But I wonder, these addictive tendencies, which are clearly rampant in the ADHD community, I wonder if that is just the obsessions too. I mean, it's just behavioral addictions, right? Like I will get hooked on a video game, and I'll play it for fucking 16-hour days for 3 weeks straight. And just, during the pandemic, I mean, I barely talked to Amy. You know what I'm saying? I was just playing this stupid ass 2D game that you play for 3 hours at a time and it's with 100 other people on a server. But it's so stupid to get into. You have to memorize the key bindings to even get into the game. You can't even play if you haven't played for about a week to try to remember the move, the sequences of keystrokes that are required for picking up a carton of milk. It's just that level of autistic, let's be honest. So if I'm going to, spend, basically just ignore all my other commitments and all my other things to do this thing, how is that different from an addiction? It's just a behavioral addiction, right?
Absolutely.
So I wonder if that's what obsessions are. It's just behavioral, we're just substituting what would be the marijuana or would be this or that for this really fucking stupid game that I wasted however many hours on, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think for me, and I don't know if this is the dyslexia, another form of obsession and stuff, but I really get drawn into stuff and I like to collect the paraphernalia around it. Mm-hmm. So people that smoke cigarettes,
board games, yeah.
People that smoke cigarettes, just normal cigarettes. Most people will probably have in their pocket a packet of cigarettes and a lighter. I would have a cigarette case that I would put my cigarettes in from the packet. That case would fold up and close, and I would have a very nice Zippo lighter with it as well. And I had 2-3 sets of those. I also liked rolling cigarettes.
The ritual is a big one.
So I had special tins for the tobacco. I like to have different flavors and types of tobacco. And I had things to hold the Rizzlers, the cigarette papers. I used to like hand rolling, but I also had rolling machines. I had a little travel ashtray. So I collected all this paraphernalia just for smoking cigarettes. Mm-hmm. And other substances come with their own paraphernalia. And I love to collect these things. I studied fine art painting. I love to collect the paraphernalia that went with that. I've recently, 2019-ish, got into woodworking. And yeah, I enjoy collecting the things for it. But like
different
I say,
tools are different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I say, like, all you need to smoke is a box of cigarettes and a lighter. But
Yeah.
I had more. I had things, and I like pretty things as well. I like things that look nice, and I also crave order because I don't have any order. So I need little boxes because that's what's going to organise you. Put shit in boxes. Yes, we're now organised. Go to Typo, get yourself a box.
I really don't want to do this. I'm outing myself on this podcast right now. You know what? Let's fucking do this. Oh God.
I'm so excited.
Okay, so addiction, check. All right.
Yeah.
Spent hours making this fucking case to put everything in. Check. All right. There you go. I spent like I think 3 days on this. Oh, I just fucking, what it is what it is. But yeah, basically there's a thing where everything fits exactly where it needs to go. Cards are here. Everything is there. Spent time gluing everything together. Yeah, exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. This is a thing of beauty. 6mm foam board is a beautiful thing.
I didn't expect this podcast to be me nerding out on my previous and current addictions, but there it is.
I just want to celebrate something as well. Is I love the ability to make, the ability to build stuff, and we all have it. Everyone has it. If you don't have it, you've missed something in the realms of evolution. So you do have it.
Mm-hmm.
We have been fascinated with making since the beginning of time, and it's something that makes our species different. And I'm wearing a Ponamu toki around my neck, which shows us here in New Zealand, 900 plus ish years ago, we had a group of people that understood the world around them to find New Zealand, and they shaped and created materials to help them shape and create materials. And it's one of the many reasons I wear this around my neck. But all around the world, all across Europe, like we're from Europe and stuff, all across Europe, there's these examples of civilizations making stuff. And when people make stuff, it really makes me excited. You might have noticed I've just had a bit of a hit and I'm obsessed. I'm not letting this go. I'm looking at it. I'm touching it.
Well, the table's also been made.
And
this has been made. Everything's been made.
Yeah.
We're out here.
It's like, it's good. And and like, I just totally encourage people making stuff. And this stuff, this foam board, like you can cut it with a freaking standing knife or a knife, can't you?
Yeah.
And it's easy to cut. You just cut it. It cuts clean. It cuts straight. PVA glue.
Yep.
And you can make shit. And it's incredible. And freaking good. I think this is beautiful.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's funny because you spend so much time on something that only really you give a shit about. You know what I mean? Because the only reason I did this is actually. So, okay, fucking hell. All right. I can't believe we're going here. So, this is a game called Spirit Island. It's a really, really fun game. It's like chess meets a dueling card game, but you're all playing together against the game. You're all spirits of this island trying to fight against the colonials that are trying to
catch
come
up on the 12-hour feed as we play this.
We don't have time. But what I'm trying to say with this is that there's a base game, and then I bought expansions for it, paraphernalia, as you say. I bought there's about 3 expansions and the game here. So there's like 4 boxes that I had. So I was like, I need to make these into 1 box, and so this was the result. And it just makes it so much easier to set up.
I love it. I think it's awesome.
But to anyone that doesn't know that, and they don't realize that it cut down my setup time by like half an hour, they're like, who gives a shit, But to me, that's like, fuck, man, half an hour when my friends are here and I'm setting up a game, that's a lot, So
I I managed to collect a pile of tools. I had the luxury of being able to have these tools, and they all existed in 3 plastic boxes. And whenever I needed a tool, I would need to empty the 3 plastic boxes to find the 2 tools that I needed. There was no order. And now there's 3 boxes of tools poured across my garage floor. I've got nowhere to work. So I'm now on the dustbin outside trying to use this tool, and it's like, it's stupid. And when I started to take woodworking seriously, whatever that means, I'm like, do I need one of those tool walls, all the tools on the walls like you see on things? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Went down a rabbit hole. Adam Savage, loads of other people, all that kind of stuff. Really went down a rabbit hole. Everyone's doing all these different tool wall things. And it kept, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. So what I did is I put this piece of wood. I had an idea of where my tool wall would go on an end of a shelf. I laid this piece of wood out on my workmate bench. That was the only bench I had at the time. And I laid out the tools that I used regularly. I just laid them out to see how they would fit. And I'm like, I'm going to leave them there and come back and look at this and just see. I can't remember if it was I realised something needed doing in the house, or there was a loose saucepan lid or whatever, or someone asked me for something. I walked in, I picked up one tool up, I used it, and I put it back down exactly where it was on that board. And this is just a flat board like a table with tools laid out in order, just loose. And it's like, oh, that tool wall's up. It's got tools on it. Of course, with me, it's a never finished project, and it would always need fine tuning, and things will change, and things do move around. But the access to tools and the access to that and putting it up is life changing.
But
so
that almost has to be a project, though, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like if I just go, oh yeah, here's the wall, right? I take a tool, I use it, something else comes up, I head out. Fucking tools in my hand, or I just drop it somewhere on the way to do whatever the fuck I'm doing. All of a sudden, one tool's missing. Now the second tool I'm using goes. So if I don't have some sort of investment, pride, obsession, something into that tool wall, I'm not gonna fucking use it. Like if I didn't care about this box, I wouldn't put the pieces back. I'll just throw them back in the box, but we'll deal with it later because that's what I do with everything else.
Yeah.
So I almost find that for that to work for me, I need to be. Have to have an obsessive project around organizing that thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, otherwise it doesn't work.
I took that as a given.
Yeah. Like if someone else did it for me, it would never work.
I know, and I think things like what you showed us there, and like this tool wall, they are very personal things. And now and then you're prescribed by the game, like, you need this many holes for this many different things, this many containers, and they need to be this big or that big. So you're prescribed that. But someone else doing the same will do it differently.
Yep.
And they will do it for them. And like the things that you need at reach, or the things you need, and you talk about walking off with tools. A lot of my stuff is done at my bench. I don't go and work somewhere else. So that's one less thing to worry about. But I have done maker cafes and I take tools out. But again, you get obsessed with tool rolls and you get obsessed with toolboxes, and you make toolboxes and you make things to take the things, so the things are on the things and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But then what's nice is when you come back, there's this empty wall. And you just sit there doing this, going, and then you look at it and it's full. You know you've got everything. You know where it all is, and that for me, again, sitting here as a 47-year-old guy, is the most freaking organised I've ever been in my bloody life. And it's been nearly 3 years I've had that tool, and
it's so funny.
And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm finally here. Like, you know how people go, oh yes, you know, the young people have to listen to the old people. Like, bullshit. I know a 9-year-old kid that comes home from school, gets to the door, takes his shoes off, puts it neatly there, walks to where he unpacks his bag and hangs his bag up, takes out the lunchbox, puts it in the kitchen, gets out his homework folder, puts that where he does his homework, zips the bag up, puts it on a hook.
I'll tell you what for a fact. That kid's name is not Eduard Todor. That's for fucking sure.
No, it's not. And it's not Alan Worman either.
Yeah.
And I look at him, I'm like, man, my shoes, each shoe can be in a different room.
Yeah. Yeah.
My keys can be in the fridge, in the garage, or still in my car door.
Yeah.
You know, or anywhere in between. You know, and like, you know, so like, yeah, I look at people like my little 9-year-old friend, and it's like, yeah, so you're now looking at me for the way.
You got it already. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're off.
Yeah. See you later.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I'm the same with like my you know, for again, lack of a better term, neurotypical friends, where they're just effortlessly doing shit where for me, it's like, it takes me you know, all my energy, all my mental obsession, a force that could literally overthrow a government to organize something, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. But cool. Yeah, we just have timestamps just for if we need to go toilet or anything like that. But sweet. Change of pace.
Yep.
Let me show you some shit I've been working on that isn't for something magic, because why would I work for something that the deadline is only a day away?
We got 29 days. It's good.
Well, and we have like, you know, 24 hours till the meeting. So
yeah.
I still have at least 20 hours to procrastinate.
Yeah.
All right.
If my internet falls out when it's my go, I apologize.
Yeah. So take one out, and I'll tell you a story.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
I love a story.
So and this is true, me and a friend. So when I started magic when I was, you can take a look at it, maybe show the camera. I started magic when I was, it should be in the shot. I started magic when I was 12, right? And it was me and two other dudes that kind of around the same time. They're not magicians anymore, but you know, Ivan was one of them, and there was another guy called Kyle. And so we used to just, you know, do magic together, compete against each other, all that stuff. But I remember I went to a lecture, I think maybe a couple years later than that. And I think it was George Iglesias. Now, I hope that's his name, because there is an Iglesias comedian that I might be confusing him with. But I think George Iglesias is the name that I'm sticking by it. He had a bunch of stuff that he was doing. And we were sitting in the front row, right, at this what's it called? Not convention. Lecture. Yeah. At this lecture, right? And you know, we're bored as fuck because he's like trying to sell some popcorn trick that he was doing for stage or something, and we're like, yeah, I'm not gonna buy this shit. So we're just sitting there, you know, just like doing this sort of stuff, just bored, just, you know. I don't think we were springing. That's a bit too rude because it's the sound, but I think we were definitely doing, you know, just like some cardistry stuff, just mixing stuff up. He's like stops at some point, right? He stops his, and I'll take the card now. So yeah, if you see it again, you'll know it. At some point he like stops his lecture, and he goes, "Oh, you boys, check this out," right? And he does this. Now, I'm gonna do it, and it's gonna be for camera as well. So, but I'll explain in a sec. So he goes like this and catches the card. Now, that was the card, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah.
Now the way he did it though is he shot the card out of the pack.
Yeah.
It went at a 45-degree angle. There was a high ceiling. So I'd say like 2 meters plus, right? So 45-degree angle, 2 meters. And then it like falls back down at that 45 sort of boomerang effect. And he catches it in the deck. So he goes, right? And it just lands inside the deck. And we just go, what the fuck was that, right? The whole crowd, like the whole, like, you know how at lectures, especially in New Zealand, there's a bunch of old guys that are almost falling asleep pretty much every lecture. And everyone wakes up and go, oh, you know,
Yeah.
what happened, you know? And we just go, oh my God, we got fucking owned.
Yeah.
Like badly, you know? And so everyone goes, hey, there's a huge commotion. Then he slows it down and goes back to his flogging his whatever material he's trying to sell. And after that lecture, I went up to him and I was like, teach me how the hell you did that. Teach me how you did that, right? So ever since that time, I've been fascinated with trying to shoot cards out of the deck, like the sleight of hand aspect of it, right? I still can't do the 45-degree, 2 meters, boom, in front of a live audience every single time. Like he must have, I don't know, that guy was insane with that move. But I've just loved this concept. So I'm just going to show you the few different ways that I've been doing it over the years, right? So, and I have a new way that I'm working on that might fail. So we'll see. But this is so that was kind of a two-handed one where he riffles through and shoots it. And then there's the classic one-handed cut to shooting it out, right?
Nice.
But since we got this table, I've been trying to use the table stuff as well, right? So with the table, there's the two-handed version, which is sort of something like that, and that should be the 3.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, you can show that. Cool. And I've been working on this one, and it's a move by I don't know his first name anymore, but his last name is Bizot, which is a Romanian guy. And the move is essentially like a one-handed pop-out move, right? It looks like something like this. Let's see if it works. There we go. And if I turn that over, that should be the card. And now just to make sure for the camera, so if the same card, if all the cards were 3 of spades, that would be easy. So there we go.
There we go, my friend.
And I'm glad that worked first take because it doesn't always work that way.
There we go. Isn't it beautiful? And like I love the story behind it. I think storytelling is again a skill we've had since the beginning of time. It's been so important that we've shared stories, that we paint them on the side of rocks. Like, you know, it's that thing. But what I like about that story is that guy could have just ignored you and sold his shit. But then he had the balls to show you something that in a way shut you up and pointed you out as dicks, but then also encouraged you as well.
Yeah.
And as much as, if someone goes, here's a form, fill it in now. No, you must do it now. I don't want to do that. You know, like I fall to bits and I fall to bits on the inside. Like I don't like that. That's not good. And it's not a constructive thing to do around me. You're going to piss me off and I'm not going to be interested and I'm going to misbehave and I'm going to be disruptive. But I do like a challenge. I do like this kind of, like I can be quite confrontational. Now, I hesitated because what confrontational means to a lot of people, and the people around me know that I'm not confrontational in an aggressive, rude way, but I'm direct and I don't have an issue with being out there and I don't have an issue with squaring up to things and being like, rah. But yeah, it's I like the directness of it and I like this kind of cockiness behind it as well. But then it woke up a room.
Yeah.
And it was, and how long ago was this for you?
Oh man, this was 11 years ago.
11 years ago. So like I was going to say you was younger, but yes, of course you were. But like you was quite young at that time. and you're still talking about it, and you've created a piece about it.
Honestly, that wasn't
incredible.
It wasn't really like, these are just moves, a genuine conversational, like, these are moves I've been practicing, and there's this new one that's kind of cool, so let me show it to you. Like, it wasn't a constructed, script written, let me put this together for a show sort of thing. It was just like something cool that I want to show you. You know?
Yeah. But it was more than that, and that's cool. And again, through this experience of something magic, which is incredible, and like everyone that's been involved in something magic, like I'm just totally thankful for, like, you know, everyone that's been involved in it. But I know through that journey, one thing you've said is like now and then that kind of connection and flow of routines for something magic is very different to your close-up stuff, which you're quite comfortable with, and that. But seeing you talk like that with that, and this is just some random moves and that kind of story, like, yeah, there's something there. And like, you know, I'm not saying there's necessarily something there in that routine, but there's something there in that process. And like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
honestly, the whole idea of this, again, I call it a podcast. People know what that means.
Yeah.
But it's really a show. You gotta see it. You know, if you're listening to it, you're still not excluded. There's a lot of audio content, but like realistically, after you finished your shift at the factory, you're gonna go and watch the highlights because I want to see those tricks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, even though, like, basically I set this up for my ideal performing environment. This is how I love performing. Like, I go to a gig and I hate, like, okay, so the most draining part of doing close up for me is breaking the ice. You got to go into a situation. You got to stop a group of people. You know, they're usually couples, right? Because most, you know, if they're not, it's a little bit, sometimes even harder because, you know, now you have like 3 single girls that think you can hit on them. It's like, no, I work here. You know, you got to do that whole thing.
What?
Oh, I love it. Well, you know, I don't have that icebreaker, man. You rock up to a table, you just do that.
No, you stand in the corner and do that. And they
people just come to you.
Yeah.
See,
or they move further away.
Yeah, my whole thing is also part of that confrontational challenge aspect that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I want to see if I can just become this group now. Like, I part of it is I like the challenge of being like, I'm gonna walk in, interrupt everyone like a fucking dickhead, and just take this over, and everyone's gonna like it. Like, there's a sort of power structure, power play there that I sort of enjoy too. I'm not gonna lie, but it's also the most draining part of it because it's like, you know, you got to win them over, you got to prove you're cool, you got to do all this extra work, and then once you've done that, now you can do some magic. But my favorite part is, as soon as you've done the magic, that's broken the ice past that superficial layer that I was talking about, where my dad does really well at, you know, and I suck at. It's like, I don't have to talk about the weather now because we're so deep now. Like, we can start talking about psychology. We can start talking about the time some hustler took their money. We can start talking about how he got cheated on and he's just at the club because blah, blah, blah. You know, we can go deep instantly. And like, that's my favorite part of doing magic. My favorite part, it's like the conversations between the magic, and the magic is a conduit for those like things to happen. You know, like this whole thing we just did, like that's exactly what I love about magic. Like, that's my favorite aspect of like just seamlessly jumping between conversation to magic to conversation. Like, I love that. So I set this up for exactly that.
I haven't done it for a while now, but I loved street busking, doing stuff.
Oh man,
on the
that's
street.
fucking scary. I still get scared about that. Man. I have never done it, but I'm fucking terrified.
2008 was my first experience out on the street, and at the time I'd been working at the Science Museum for a while. I've been doing guided tours. I was doing science shows, and I was used to performing in front of people and performing in front of lots of different types of people. And I was good at it. And yes, that is an arrogant thing to say. I was good at it. But the thing that authorizes me in saying that is I got paid to do that. And the people that hired me to do it believed I could do it. They put the time and effort in through training. I put the time and effort in through work, and it all paid off. And I was getting picked and asked to do the shows for companies that were sponsoring the museum, companies that were coming in, and other things, and groups. And so I knew I was good, and I was comfortable at performing, standing up in front of people. Bang, fine, yeah. Hit the streets, stop 3 people. All of a sudden, my stomach flipped.
Yep.
I really felt I needed a bathroom, and the bathroom weren't close. And I'm like, oh my God, these just stopped working, and sweat poured down my back. Finished the show, blah. Went home. My wife asked, how did it go? And I explained. And she said, you won't be doing that again. And I went, oh no, I will. There's a whole lot of procrastination, and I needed the perfect thing for the perfect thing for the perfect thing, because then it was going to be a smash, which is a fallacy we tell ourselves all the freaking, oh, if I just get this, if I just get that, if I just have that.
The funny thing is, we know while we're doing it, we know we're bullshitting ourselves as well.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Like, we're not fooling even ourselves, but we're also just like, it's a rationalization that, is good enough to avoid it.
And then I had a few hits and a few misses with it, and there was a lot of experimentation with street busking. And then 2011, when I was in New Zealand, I started to hit the streets more and hit the streets regularly. And I just started off slowly because I was good at the diablos and juggling. I took just juggling out with me and just got used to being on the street, and then started to introduce some magic. In 2019, I really felt I was getting somewhere with it. And then 2020, the world changed a bit. I did have that crash of nerves for street busking, and I conquered it. And I still struggle with going out on the street. My first time for a long time is always I work for it. But what I liked about it, and what you talk about, like, I've never done much close-up corporate work. I just never really been in a place to do it. But what does appeal me to that is similar to the street. And what I love about the street is you're disrupting. You're being very disruptive, and you're disrupting the street. No one expects you to be there. No one's gone there to see a magic show. And all of a sudden, there's this disruption to that place. And that place becomes a theatre. And it's when you see those people leave differently to when they came. And there's only one reason they're feeling different, and that's because of you. Yeah, that's the magic. I think we spoke about this briefly with Something Magic 3. A woman brought 3 11-year-old kids. When she arrived, she didn't quite know what she was coming to.
I had to tone down my swearing a lot more.
I think there was an anxiety at the not knowing. And also, like, we keep Something Magic reasonably priced. But, like, it was an investment for her, and she's got these 11-year-old kids, and I think they soon realised it wasn't your typical sort of magic show. But It's perfectly fine for 11-year-old kids. Like, no issue with that. But what was cool is she arrived anxious. When she left, she was buzzing and she had a good time and she enjoyed it. And my wife, Emily, heard the kids say, oh, that wasn't what we expected. Now, to me, that's only a good thing, whatever that means. But I'd be interested to find out if it's not what they expected, but was it still good?
Mm-hmm.
And is it something that they didn't expect, but they want more of? But we're never going to have that conversation.
Yeah. But I mean, if the vibe you got off her that she was buzzing, then that's a pretty easy indicator, right?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So yeah, something.
And the kids were hyped. You know,
something magic happened.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, no, that was a fun one, man. I was scared shitless doing non-card magic. Part of it terrified me. I told Ivan because I actually performed the Trop Cup to Ivan.
Yeah.
The dice cheating. And I was telling him, like, you know, with cards, if I fuck up, I have 15 million variations and ways to get out of it and ways to, you know, if I lose a card, I can find it again. And I'm not worried either. Like I can just jazz it up and take it in a different direction. And you won't even know that it's where it's supposed to go anyway. If I fuck up with the dice, I just fucked up. Like there's nothing else to it. It's just I fucked up. Same way with coins for me. Like I feel the same way. It's like my knowledge of those things is so limited that I only have one move. I only have one thing. You know what I mean? So if I screw up, I'm just done. Like there's nothing else to it. And so that creates so much pressure in my head, you know? It's funny because like I noticed this in a lot of things, like in martial arts. If I learn a new position, and there's in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's very I know it's kind of a cheesy fucking cliche to say, but it's like a very chess-like game. It's very much like I make a move, you make a move. I make a move, you make a move. I have to counter the move you make with something of mine, and then you have to think, okay, what's he going to do 3 steps from now, and counter with something of yours. And so it's a very much like cerebral, like, you can have an athlete that comes in and is really good, but if they don't know what they're doing, they're going to get smashed. And so if I learn a new position, but like I don't know it deeply enough to really do anything. So if one thing doesn't work and now they give me an option that I'm not ready for, I don't know how to deal with that. So all of a sudden, but if I'm playing my A game, if I do the thing that I'm really, really good at, I have branches on branches of every option. I know if he does this, if he grips me like this, I'm going to do that. If he grips me like this, I'm going to do the other thing. If he grips me this way, I'm going to do that. And like I can just sit here and draw a flow chart of each specific thing to do at every single scenario in that position, And it's the same thing with the magic. It's like I know this medium with this card stuff so well that like even if it's a hard thing, even if I fuck up, I'm not worried about it because I just know where to take it. But with the new stuff, it's terrifying, And with the mentalism, it's like I feel the same thing. It's like I don't know much about mentalism, so
and it's that familiarity with the object, the familiarity with how it feels, and then the knowledge, and the knowledge being there, and the muscle memory being there. And I see these guys, like I'm not a big card worker. My card handling is direct, sloppy, and simple and stuff. I know enough to do what I need to do, and I don't know much else. I'm aware of a lot of stuff. And again, there's always this, one day I will sit down and I will do the Royal Road to Card Magic and the course and the thing and the stuff. But rubber bananas. Yeah. Bananas come up.
Card College has been sitting there.
Yeah, Card College.
I even have two books open, two of the volumes open at specific tricks that I haven't touched that I've been meaning to for months. Yeah. So I feel you on that.
Yeah, and you have this knowledge, you have this muscle memory, you're familiar with thing. And one thing I look at card handlers and card workers is one thing you notice is there's always the deck of cards in their hand. You know, when you guys come round, the decks of cards just come out and they're there and they're just Yeah. When you meet people at conventions, there's pockets of people that, the cards just come out. And they will put them away, have a drink, have something to eat, they come out. And that is what's needed. That is what is needed. But the issue is, as soon as your prop becomes something else, and I'm trying to think of example, even coins in some forms. If you're out in public playing with those things, it can get a little odd. It can get a little weird. It can get a little unusual. And like the bananas, for crying out loud. That banana trick is a wonderful thing. It's crazy. And that is about it. Again, could we workshop it and think of other things to do with those bananas? Yes, maybe. But the thing is standing around multiplying bananas, that's weird. But for some reason, the deck of cards is so inconspicuous and you can play it. And one thing I used to do with the rough card handling I would do is I would sit on a London Underground train and I would find a card like, let's say the two of spades because it's visual, two of spades. And I would just sit there and I would just flick it up to the top. I would maybe hold it up so people could see. I wasn't doing it to people. And I'd put it in and I flick through and I find it at the top. And I control it to the top and I find it again. And I do other stuff and I find it and it appears. I cut here and it appears. Just with the moves that I know. And I would just be doing that as a practice. But soon as someone started watching, I would fan it out and just hold it. And I wouldn't look at them. I would never look at them. I would just spread it out and do that. And this is another cool thing. They knew instantly what to do.
Yeah.
We don't need to tell people pick a card. We don't need to tell them to look at it. They show their friends. They put it back in. And bang. But now, it ain't about the smart dick on the train finding the card. It's about this moment that's just happened and the moment that's about to happen.
That's exactly like what I was saying, right? Like I really enjoyed the magic as a conduit for that connection. You know what I mean? Because it's like, if you're just sitting there, you're on your phone, you would never interact with that person. No. I told the story of how when I was in Solomon Islands, I did this, I was thinking what to do, and I did this trick where basically their card appears in a sealed pack of cigarettes inside one of the cigarettes, like all rolled up. And they open the pack and they hand it to me and I try to light it and it's not lighting and I hold it up and it's inside. And because I was like, what can I do that connects with them with something that they, and they smoke tobacco all day, every day. That's all, nothing else to do. You're just on the island, you're fucking swimming around, catching fish, eating coconuts, smoking tobacco, So, and the word just spread, like from island to island, like within a day, And so like that impact, that thing of like something crazy just happened and like, the way it connects with people on a base level, like that to me is really fascinating. And I love it, Now here's the thing, right? I've been thinking about this and like people say that, slight topic change, but that's just my brain being weird. People say that like men tend to obsess about things and women tend to obsess about people, right? Like there's a reason why men predominate engineering, women predominate psychology. Like that's sort of the I find that I I'm sort of in between, hermaphrodite of this analogy, where I obsess about people as things. Like I think about the mechanisms of what drove people. You know what I mean? Like I almost take the way a child takes apart a toy to see how it works. You know, I don't want to cut people open. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm not some serial killer, but like it's fascinating to me how people operate and why they operate, and like almost like break this down, you know? And I told you this a while ago that when I first saw you, the first thing that struck out to me was, wow, this guy is like unique. He's out there, like, and owns it completely. You know, like as you said, you're not average in any way, and then, like it doesn't
scientifically proven.
You just stand out. Like as soon as I saw you at the convention, and I was like, oh damn! And in a way, it was like there was something intimidating about the way that you owned that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not that you were an intimidating person, like, you know, you're hard to approach, but I mean, at the time I was quite insecure. You know, I was still working through a lot of issues, and I think we probably all do, from high school to getting older and sort of settling into who we are. But that's what struck out to me instantly, without even talking to you, without just seeing how you interact. And I remember asking you before the Something Magic show, like, how the fuck did that happen? How do you go from you know, feeling different, right? And how do you internalize that aspect of, like, for me, it was just like, I must be broken, right?
Yeah.
And so I tried for the longest time to be like everyone else, instead of just being like, no, fuck everyone else. Yeah. They should try to be like me, you know, like, you know, there's like this unapologetic way which you carry yourself, this very like eccentric sort of like, I don't care. This is who I am, and I'm just going to do what I do. You know, how do you see your, like, I guess from the upbringing that you've had, you know, maybe from an early age, I don't know how far back you want to go, but how do you see that like process? Because for me, that was like, I've only recently, I can say now I feel pretty comfortable with who I am, but it's only in the last couple years, and maybe not even that long ago. You know what I mean?
Oh shit! Like, how long have we got? Yeah, I like, you know, I like. Okay. First of all, you mentioned about the sort of divide between male, female, engineering, and what was the other thing you said? Psychology and stuff. Yeah. First of all, through looking at stuff, the binary of male and female is just bullshit. There is absolutely, like, I just don't find that divide of gender works, and science proves it. And, you know, I struggled through part of my life where I didn't think I was man enough.
I had that too, yeah.
And because I didn't think I was man enough, I questioned if I was gay, which is fucking stupid when I look at it. But, like, you know, all of that stuff just kind of went through that thing. And that also, this men are from Venus, women are from Mars, or whatever way around it is, like, that's just people that, again, I don't understand what's going on, so there's got to be another explanation for it, because, like, it can't be me. And and then men are into engineering, girls are into pink. Pink doesn't exist; it's a made-up color, and it's people are like, what? Did he say that? Yes, I did. There we go. And I've got a shot for goths as well about black. But anyway, moving on. Tangents, beautiful things. But society has a lot to do with that. Like, oh yeah, women would always be attracted to the pink broom. Kids in the back arse off the middle of nowhere don't have
that
brooms.
association.
They won't walk into
blue
a
or
room
pink,
and see
yeah.
a pink broom and sweep it up.
Yeah.
It's society that's done that. So that's a tangent, but that is about knowing yourself. And I think for a lot of people that are trying to find themselves, those stereotypes, those binary male, female don't help a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And that I, for myself, and what we spoke about, I will give the same answer is, yes, I am comfortable in my skin. Yes, I understand myself more and I'm aware of who I am more. The fact that you are 20-something and I am 40-something, again, doesn't mean I'm old and wise. It just means I'm further down this path dealing this shit. But then also there's 9-year-olds that can put their shoes by the door and remember their stuff. Like, you know, it's that, like, again, this age thing is, yeah, whatever. I
think that it's overblown in a lot of even cultures, I'd say, you know, like this whole respect. Of course you should respect people, but it doesn't mean they're right.
No.
But I can see from my own perspective when I was fucking 18, you know what I mean? Like the amount of progress in my own understanding and my own emotional control and my own ability to read a situation, to read social cues, to have sort of, to be aware of how people perceive me, you know, all these sort of things that sort of interplay to create a sense of confidence, to create a sense of understanding of who I am in the world and this hierarchy that we call society and all the rest of it, right? I see a massive difference. So I definitely don't think it should be underplayed either. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely a thing that, like, for me, life sucked when I was younger. You know what I mean? Like terribly. And now I can say, like, I enjoy this life, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a huge difference to go from, like, I wasn't suicidal, but it's like, might have been better if I wasn't born, because then I wouldn't have to deal with this bullshit.
Yeah.
And then now it's like, nah, fuck, this is mean. You know, this is fucking amazing. I'm loving it, you know? Even though there's hardships and there's things that you got to do that suck and et cetera, et cetera. But all that's happened from then to now is age.
Yeah.
All that's happened is experience. All that happened is time.
And that's exactly
time ticking, slowly dying, you know, all the rest of it.
And I think that because I got some explanation of, yeah, well, I'm different. I don't fit in this average shadow, but there's an explanation behind it and it's perfectly fine. Like that gave me a lot of confidence. You spoke a little bit in your kind of build up to it about what was my upbringing. My upbringing was very freaking supportive and just like we wasn't arse broke poor, but there wasn't a lot of spare cash in our family, and things were pretty basic, and then things were freaking tight. And my mother and my dad like worked some real magic on making what resources they had go round. Like it was quite incredible what they achieved. And like, you know, they only encouraged the madness. They only encouraged the fun. They only encouraged the creativity and stuff like that, which I'm just phenomenally grateful for. And I, you know, I was always comfortable with being me in my house. When I went to school, it was a different story. And I wasn't a mainstream kid. I wasn't one of the cool kids on the block. But I wasn't the kids that got bullied. But there was bullying and stuff that happened to me. But there was some kids that got it really hard ass. But there was a group of us misfits that stuck together. And because the popular kids kind of liked us, the bullies didn't target us, because whoever we got out of hand, the popular kids would get involved as well. So, but, you know, we was outcast. And I can remember one day sitting down and looking at the popular kids. I don't know whether if this was right or not, but I worked out how I could become one of them. the clothes I would need, the things I would need to do. And it was, again, the 12, 13-year-old brain. It made sense. And I think it was, there was something there. I could have acted up and sat at the table with the adults. You know what I mean? It was that kind of stuff. But in the process of doing that, I don't want to do that. That's stupid. So, like, you know, again, this comfortableness with who I am.
Yeah.
And then when I got diagnosed with dyslexia and rada, and then, you know, there is nothing better than, you know, people go, I saw you at a convention. You intimidated me, but you stood out. Come on my podcast. Yep, my ego's bigger, widen the door, my head's not going to get through, you know? And I dress like this is my performance costume, what I'm wearing here. However, I've always had a thing for dressing differently and dressing what I feel comfortable in and what I like. And what's strange is I bought this as a costume because I was always playing around that idea. I liked the braces. I liked the look. I like the look of a comedian, mime, clown called George Cole. I don't know if you're familiar with him. There's a British guy that spends a lot of time in New Zealand, a guy called Fraser Hooper. He's influenced by George Cole. I liked his stuff. Charlie Fry.
Oh, yeah.
Again, worked under, studied along with George Cole. Has some of his stuff. You know, they all had that look, and the trousers are kind of, and the braces are my kind of lift on that look. But then also there's other influences that come in. But what's strange is when I got this as a costume, I liked it so much, I've actually bought 2 more pairs of these trousers and another jacket, and I wear that as a uniform now. And I have what look like the French striped tops, but they're actually, dare I say it, Russian sailor submarine tops. And I just have a pile of them, and that's my uniform. I've always had uniforms. Literally, I went through at college through the kind of grunge era. I went through the sort of surplus military stuff and the plaid shirts, and I was doing that because they was around for the same reasons that the grunge bands was doing it, because it was around. And then when it all exploded, it was like, oh, everyone's wearing plaid shirts and stuff. It's like, well, yeah, but it's been around for a while. And when I first arrived to New Zealand, I collected lots of Hawaiian shirts that were bought as a laugh on holiday. Soon as you get through customs, you realise you don't look so good in that shirt now, and you throw it into the second-hand shop and some idiot buys them. But like, I would wear these brightly coloured shirts. I would wear them with corduroy trousers. But again, it was a uniform. I just grabbed a pair of trousers and a shirt and bang. So I'm doing the same thing. Now, the 2 pairs of trousers are exactly the same, and the 7 shirts are almost exactly the same. Some are long sleeve, some are short sleeve. But it's a uniform. This is a costume. What's the difference? But when I put this on, and especially put the hat on, and roll up, show the socks, have the polished boots, steel cut boots, something happens. And something happens that parts of me get magnified, parts of me get bigger, and other parts of me just get moved out of the way and put somewhere safely. And that, and yeah, I'm ready to attack. But it's not, it's all genuine. I think everything's genuine, even when I've got the costume on and I'm hiding bits away and things like, and exaggerating bits. it's all still me. And yeah, when I'm at the conventions, I'm having the best time ever. I'm just so freaking happy.
It's just a nerd fest, man. It's great.
And it's just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, that's cool. Yep. No, I don't do any of that. Do you want? No, I don't want to learn any of it. But I'm glad you know it.
yeah.
Oh, hello. How are you? Oh, you do that. Yeah, cool. Excellent. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just bang, 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 bang.
But it's interesting because, so basically the reason why I opened with that is that just to say, not to say that I'm worried about me liking this thing of like breaking people down and understanding why they, I'm not worried about that at all. It's just interesting because like, it's just another thing that isn't normal. It's not like the usual. It's not the thing that stacks up with society or whatever. Which I guess makes me good on, makes it a good thing for me in this scenario because I'm interested in learning about why the hell you wear these clothes and, but like, what I find fascinating, like, is that, so for me, I was that group that you were talking about early on that was bullied a lot, right? Yeah. And so I early on, I think I realized that like if I stood out, it's a problem, And so I think what's interesting is that you had a extended amount of time in your life where you had like a safe space to be different. And even though maybe you weren't popular, the popular kids were sort of like, no, they're cool. Don't worry about them. Right. So you sort of still kind of were able to foster that. And so I think for me, I only realized once I, quite late that I'm like, wait, I don't actually give a shit. if I, if I'm not like the rest of the people, let me just stand out how I want to stand out and let that be, I remember reading The Art of Not Giving a Fuck by, I think, Mark Manson. And like, he's a character and people can, there's, argue, people can argue about his whole shit left, right, and center. But for me, it's like the idea of polarizing, there's nothing worse than meeting someone and just not leaving any impression at all. Just, for someone that like, for me, I had massive social anxiety and I'm an extrovert. So it's the worst fucking combination because I want to talk to people. I want to hang out, but I'm fucking anxious, Yeah. And so I just decided, you know what? Love me or hate me. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Just one of the two. Pick one and stick with it. You know what I mean? And so like, but it took me, as I said, it's fucking in the last few years, just because in school I still was trying to be this cool kid and just failing terribly and not realizing why. And it's like, yeah, I didn't care about the same things as the cool kids did, Like I care about organizing my fucking board game thing. I don't give a shit about, driving drunk and getting my ID taken off me because, I was fucking reckless, but that's the cool thing to do, Like that doesn't sound appealing to me at all,
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, that's fucking interesting. And like, yeah, I've been wanting to have this conversation we did have it before the last.
We have it in bits, but there's not. I grabbed this, and very quickly there's 6 images here. This is what I use to talk to when I'm creating stuff, and we can take a picture of this and share this and stuff. Very quickly, like there's Tommy Cooper, which I just always found funny. And it was just so odd and just so weird and just so out there. There's a thing. People hate me because I did a reaction to him where I just didn't get his humor. But it's very, first of all, it's very UK humor. One. Yeah.
And it's a slightly generational thing as well,
totally.
I believe. Yeah. So I during the whole reaction, I'm like, I understand I'm not the audience.
Yeah.
Like I'm not the niche. And like, I can see why, I can understand it. It's not my humor. But I think like the amount of people that were like, you fucking idiot, he was amazing. Like the amount of fucking fans that guy had.
Yeah.
I'm like, God damn, he was amazing. Because people attacked me left, right, and center.
But again, it's that British institution, like, and I find it freaking like just so annoying. Like, how dare someone attack this comedian? That's, and like, there was items of hit and miss about him, and I think in a weird way, it'd be interesting. I might go and look at your reaction because it'd be interesting to see what you saw. But like, yeah, so it's got Tommy Cooper. It's got this collage that I did from old Dandy magazines, and it's got this joke shop by Post. I used to love those little jokes like freaking fart cushions and whoopee cushions and all that kind of stuff. I loved that. And also the idea that you used to read it in the comic, send off for the catalogue. You'd get the catalogue by post. You fill out the order form. You send it off, and your stuff comes through the door.
I missed that whole era. I missed that whole era.
It's like that's where we lived. There's Wile Coyote there. Wile Coyote never gave up. Things blew up in his face. The bird run through a tunnel he'd just painted. He runs through it. He smashes his face on the wall. You know, he never gives up. So it's like, you know, there's Eric Morecambe as well. I don't know. Again, another British comedian, Morecambe and Wise. He had a very sort of disdain about the thing. And then there's a Banksy painting, which, I love the comment on the shirt off a monkey. Laugh now, but one day we'll be in charge. And I just love, again, how Banksy disrupts stuff. And is every answer to every question about street art on the chase. And then there's an impossible Rubik's Cube in a glass bottle.
I need to get myself one of those.
And all these things inspire me. But the reason I pulled it out is you were saying about being different and attracting. I saw this in a shop and it was on special and I bought it, and it's a little stick-on badge that says, "You're weird, I like it." And I read that. They was all in this box, this jar. I'm just searching through, and there was like enameled bananas with smiley faces and sweet corn and that stuff and strange little dog type things and stuff. I'm like, and I'd stopped at that and I read it, and there I am in this typo, and it was quite busy. And I just burst out laughing. I just found it the funniest thing that there's this badge saying, "You're weird, I like it." And I'm like, yeah, I like it too.
Yeah.
And if anyone else thinks they're weird, I want them to know I like it. And I got another one of these somewhere, and I always mean to make it into a badge, but I wear other badges that says other weird shit, so that's cool. But I just like that idea of like, yeah, let's celebrate this weirdness. Let's celebrate this stuff. And like, you know, if I can't be me, I can't stand in that room. It's as simple as that. Yeah. And I'm not into these motivational word of the days and here's something to soothe you and help you. Oh, just get me a coffee and move on. But yeah, you're weird. I like it. Yeah, I can live with that.
Yeah, it's good enough for me. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's
and
cool, man.
Oscar Wilde said, "Be yourself. Everyone else is taken."
Yeah.
And someone sent that to me one day. They knew I was having a hard time. They knew I was struggling. And they just sent me that quote. And they knew that sending me quotes from people would send me over the edge. But they knew that quote was going to be
all right,
okay.
Here's one for you. Yeah. Oh, wait. Can you just wait 3 seconds? Here's one for you before we move on to another topic. All right. Look up Jim Carrey and 50 Cent. Have you seen that video? Okay. So there's a video of 50 Cent rapping his song, "Find me in the club, ball full of whatever the fuck the lyrics are. I don't know. And I think it's Jim Carrey's birthday or something, like birthday party. And he just starts like he takes off his glasses and starts like shaking his head like a maniac. And even 50 is like trying not to laugh while he's rapping. And it's the most, it's like I've rewatched that clip so many times because it's the most like, it's exactly what you'd expect Jim Carrey to do in the most gangster environment of all time. And he's just being absolutely just crazy. And it's like that uniqueness, it's that like that unapologetic uniqueness that like, I'm trying to foster more and more.
cool.
But yeah, that's a fucking clip, man. And next, I wish we had a screen, which we're going to put up at some point, a screen for the reactions and stuff. But I want to show you that clip right now because it's fucking hilarious.
I'm sure that screen is just on your short list of 5-minute jobs.
Yeah,
today.
exactly. Yeah. Now, I've been sort of working my way up, and right now you do science shows in schools, which is fascinating because not a lot of people that you meet are like, do that sort of. I guess it's a type of performing, in a way. Yeah. How did you get into that?
Cool. Again, how long have we got? From a young age, I've just been fascinated by stuff. That would be my specialist subject on Mastermind. Stuff fascinates me, and that. So how I got, well, first of all, what I do now is me and my wife run a company called Science in a Van. We go into schools and do science shows. They're 45 minutes long. We do them to 250 to 500 kids at a time. They're big, they're loud, they're full of science demos. We blow giant bubbles and talk about mixtures. We fire rubber chickens and water rockets and talk about forces. They're these crazy whirlwind, full of science, based around the curriculum that is in schools. But they're done in a very sort of loud and big way. Heaps of really bad puns, terrible dad jokes. Some of the jokes are just there for me. I try a joke out for 4 years. When one person laughs in the corner, I jump off stage, hug them, and never use the joke again. It's that kind of madness. And they're big, they're fun, and they're exciting. And we travel all over New Zealand. Well, obviously there's been some restrictions, but normally we travel all over New Zealand doing that. So we've been down as far as Invercargill, Bluff. We was in Bluff when the lockdown got strongly rumoured, and we drove 3 days to Auckland and stuff. So you can't get any further. I know there's Stewart Island, but you can't get any further. And we've been farish up north.
So do you do those like seasonally? Like, is there like a tour that you do, and then for parts of or is it sort of all year round? You're just hopping around, or how does that work?
Yeah. So we do those in. It's our full-time job. It's our main income, and it's been our main income for 7-ish years now, if not a bit longer. And it's Auckland schools, Hamilton schools, around that kind of area, we do all of the time. Further afield needs to set up kind of tours. Now and then we might drive to an area and do schools either along a route or around that area for a week. When we go to the South Island, and this is what's been our hiccup of not doing it for a while, is everything needs to be connected. Like, we're not going to drive a van full of props down to bloody Dunedin to do one show. It's just not viable. However, if we link it all together, maybe Wellington, then we get in and drive down to Christchurch, Dunedin, Invercargill, and go around. Yeah, it all comes together. So the South Island tour normally happens in term 1. We did it in the first couple of years we was formed. We did it in term 3. That was a stupid idea because it's really cold when you're staying in cheap accommodation. And why would you have to drive down the road that you need snow chains on in a van? Anyway, moving on. So term 1 is when we normally do those. And then Auckland being, what is it, 5th of the population or something of New Zealand live in Auckland. So you could just run a business in Auckland alone.
Right.
I like the idea of being international. You asked how we got into it. Me and my wife met working at the Science Museum in London. We worked in the education department, this informal learning, hands-on galleries. And I was there for 9 years. My wife was there for 7 years. We met at the Science Museum. The chemistry started there.
Oi!
See what I did there?
There's the dad joke.
Yeah, and if my wife was here, she would have jumped on that joke within seconds just to beat me to it. And that, but yeah, so yeah, that's where we saw this and learnt the skills of presenting these ideas and these concepts. And whenever you're in a workplace, you always know what should be done. You always know what's wrong. You always know how to do it better. And when we set up Science in a Van, yeah, we realised we didn't have a freaking clue. And things happen for a reason. But then also there was certain successes of like, yeah, see, it does work. Ta-la. You know.
So what, you put together a show and what, you pitch it to the school, or what, like, what's the process of like going from no shows, never done it, to we're now Science in a Van and also get us for your school? Like, you know what I mean? What's the binary 0 and 1 is what is interesting, because like once you do a couple, it's like we've done a couple, we have this portfolio, blah blah blah, you know.
We trying to work out how much to say and how much not to say, like trim the fat off. So 2010 we finished that epic travel that I roughly mentioned. We walked across Spain, volunteered in India, ended up in New Zealand. We had no idea what we was doing. My wife trained as a teacher. She realised it was hard work and gave it up. But when we came to New Zealand, we met a lot of her friends, which she knew at teacher training college and through stuff that were teachers. And we sat with them. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, we're just hang around, bum around, see what happens. We've got a return ticket to the UK. We're just here for Christmas. We'll hang out for the summer. We'll see what happens. And they said, why don't you do one of your science shows? When we used to come over on holiday, we would do shows in people's schools for them. I'd just sit with kids and show them experiments and stuff and that. And they said, why don't you set up a science show? So this idea of setting up a show that fitted in a car, we travel around New Zealand, do shows, it pays for the petrol money from place to place, was the first concept. Yeah. That never actually happened, but that was the first concept. We then sat down and just worked out what it would look like and what we could do. And I started to read the New Zealand curriculum and see what was there.
Be honest. How trash is it?
I
have a history of just trashing the New Zealand curriculum coming from Romania. You know, we when I came, I was year 4. I came from like, you know, doing fractions and you know, denominator, numerator, like, you know, adding shit, whatever, coming here. Can you add 15 plus 12? Yeah, sure. I'll do it. Like, can you show you're working? It's like, no, it's 15 plus fucking 12. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck do you want from me? Jesus Christ. So they would actually fail me because I couldn't show the workings. And I'm like, it's fucking, you know, it's just this answer. I just know it. Like, oh man.
It's, the curriculum is there for a reason, and whatever that reason is, I don't know. But, well, I do know. Sorry, that was bad. But I think the biggest issue is when I look at the curriculum, it excites me because it's very open. It's very like, here's some things that at this age, at this level, they should be doing this. They should be able to identify that. They should be able to do this. Freaking awesome if you know the subject.
Yep.
If you don't know the subject, I think a lot gets lost. And science is our thing. We focus on the physical world and material world. And what happens is And we've got to celebrate teachers here. Teachers are freaking amazing. They are working around a broken machine. And that's my viewpoint on the curriculum and certain parts of the New Zealand education system. But the teachers that are at the coalface, want of a better word, are freaking amazing. And here's something that shows how amazing they are. 2011, we was being met at the school gate, and there was all this stuff being done by Aero and other educational monitoring bodies that work for or supported by the government. And what they said is that science is lacking in schools and that science needs to be encouraged into schools, and they would like to see an improvement of it. We was being met at the school gates and teachers were saying, we don't do any science at school, we don't know any science and that, and you're it. And it's like, cool. And it was very fortuitous that Science in a Van set up at that time. Like, we didn't know that. That wasn't the plan, and we didn't know that. Now we're going into schools, and they've got science clubs. They have a science model that runs out through their school. Some schools even have like science centres and maker spaces in their school, and that's freaking amazing. And the attitude that we're being met at the gate is completely different. And again, male, female society, rada. Primary school teaching attracts a high percentage of females. Science study attracts a lot of males. So you've already got an issue. People with science degrees are going to look at teaching and other opportunities around them. It's like, teaching ain't attractive unless they've got that heart of, I want to be a teacher. It
also pays fuck all.
Which has got to be. But yeah, you can get a lot.
You could work in a lab and get paid or you can work as a teacher and get paid peanuts.
A level entry science job with your science degree is going to be better paid or similar paid to teaching. And teaching comes with a whole other box of nuts. And yes, teaching has got to be a passion thing that you want to do, but you've got to be attracted to it. And so like now we've got all these mismade things. So the fact that there's these teachers that ain't coming from a science background, which is perfectly fine. Me and Emily ain't. I studied fine art painting at college. She studied politics and something else, and then went to be a teacher, and then did something else, and ended up at the Science Museum by mistake, you know? So you don't need to be a science. 300 years ago, the word science didn't fucking exist. Like, Sir Isaac Newton was a natural philosopher. And at some
point, science was, we live on a turtle.
and like, you know, and everyone is a scientist, you know? Everyone uses science as a tool. It's a tool and a way of thinking. It's not a thing, and it's not a stuff. But so when we go into schools, we do these shows, and our biggest thing is make science fun, make it exciting, and break some of the barriers of science. You don't need heaps of fancy equipment. You don't need to wear a lab coat when you do it. If you look up Science in a Van on YouTube, you see this guy in a yellow t-shirt, knee-length trousers, yellow socks up to his knees, and I'm doing science. And my wife wears a similar kind of thing, and we're just two people in t-shirts just doing science, just enjoying it with stuff you find around your house. And I'll tell you what, I'll show you something.
There it is.
Here it is. Okay. What camera's best to do this to?
If you hold, I think your angle is about to here.
Yeah.
So if anything behind there, you're gonna probably see it. Is that correct?
Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
So in this bottle, we have a little soy sauce fish.
Okay.
And what I'm going to do, is science is one way of understanding the world around us. It's not the only way of understanding the world around us. But when we understand the world around us, we can control and manipulate the world around us. So I'm going to hypnotize this soy sauce fish. Watch closely. Sleep. 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 Now the soy sauce fish has fallen asleep under my control. I've hypnotized the soy sauce fish. But when I click my fingers, it wakes up again. But if I go sleep, 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 I've hypnotized it again. And I click my fingers and it wakes. But if I go stop, 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 I can stop it, click my fingers and it wakes up again. So I've hypnotized the soy sauce with my understanding of science. I tell you what, Eduard, you're going to get to hypnotize the fish yourself. Woo! So hold it in one hand like so. Wave that hand magically and you squeeze with that hand nice and tight. Squeeze tight. Now he gets a little stuck. So give him a little shake so he comes out the neck. Yep. And squeeze. And now keep the pressure on and he sinks, but you let go of the pressure and he floats. So when we sit in a bath of water, the level of water rises. That's called water displacement. If we're heavier than the water, we push out of the way, we sink. If we're lighter than the water, we push out of the way, we float. So at the moment, that fish is lighter than the water it pushes out of the way, so it floats. But when we squeeze it, we create pressure. That crushes the fish, taking up less room. So its volume has changed, pushing less water out of the way. It is now heavier than the water it pushes out of the way, so it sinks.
So you're saying that the pressing of it actually reduces its like volume, the actual physical size it takes in the bottle.
Yeah, that's it.
Interesting.
But the mass, the amount of stuff
is still the same.
Yeah, is the same.
Interesting.
So by reducing the volume, we've reduced the amount of water we displace. We're now heavier than the water we push out of the way, so we sink.
That is fucking cool.
And that's cool. And
now, as soon as you did it, I assumed it was to do with pressure, just based on understanding of what the only variable that can be changed. But I didn't understand why. It's still slightly confusing if I really think about it, but I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, you know, with my like intuitive understanding. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and like, you know, when I describe this and explain it, like, and people ask me questions, now and then I just stop and go, I don't know. And it's okay to say that we don't know. But also by sharing the knowledge of water displacement, the fact that when we're heavier, we sink, and when we're lighter, we float. And like, you know, things get said because we want to make stuff easy. We want to make stuff understandable and we want to make stuff accessible. But we say that heavy things sink, light things float. That's nonsense.
Things either fall or don't.
Yeah. Like, you know, Rena and the Titanic, they both floated. Not the best examples because they also both sunk. But they were big, heavy boats that both floated. But then something happened to them. Their mass changed and they sunk. But they weren't light.
Yeah.
You know.
Either way, yeah.
You know, they wasn't light things. So, yeah, it's cool. And like what I love about this is it's a soy sauce fish. We all know the soy sauce fish is. You can fine tune them by getting them to float by filling them up with soy sauce, which, depending on what age group you're working with, is either something you set as a challenge or something you just do for them. And then I love it because I walk out and I go, I'm going to, like, we normally do this in teacher training, but we do it in walk round science with kids as well. And I go, I'm going to hypnotize the fish. And they see you hypnotize it. And then you click your fingers. And you spoke about getting people's attention in a room. walk up to someone and go, hello, I'm going to talk about water displacement and I've got this here and I want to explain. They're not going to be interested. You walk up to someone and go, I'm going to hypnotise a fish.
Yeah.
Totally not what they're expecting. You do it. The first thing they do is, especially kids, but kids are wonderful. They want, you're not hypnotising it. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. Or we was at some holiday programs recently, and when I did it, they were like, oh, how do you do that? And now you've got the in.
You got them to ask the question.
You got the in.
That's fucking genius. Because instead of telling some kid, like, this is what you should learn because I said so, you now got them to literally ask you for the answer.
Yeah. And a wise person said to me, if you want someone to be interested in something, put it in a box and just put it over there. And that's the honest truth. And again, this is, if you want to talk more about me and what I am, this is it. So in here, I'm going to explain this probably in 3 different ways, if that's okay with you.
Fair enough.
So in here is something very, cool. I've just thought about saying that. Should have thought about it a while ago. In here is something very, very special. You're very lucky that I've brought it here today. And it's in here. It's this stuff here. This here is the psychic purple potion of Papa Toy Toy. Ooh. Now, what I'm going to do is show you the interesting properties of the psychic purple potion of Papa Toy Toy. I'm just changing things around because I realised the cameras are there. There we go. So, I want, believe it or not, Eduard, this will even work on pre-record. It's that amazing.
Wow.
Everyone at home is going to think of their favourite colour. Everyone that's watching this, and the psychic purple potion will predict it. You watch. Everyone's thinking of a colour, and that colour is the colour pink. Now, there's part of your audience at home, they're going, that's wrong. But the ones that predicted pink are going, oh my God, I can't believe it. He's a witch, burn him. And to prove it's not fake, how could it possibly be fake? You're seeing it on the internet. It must be real. Me just having a little go, but we move on. For the ones that didn't predict pink, they probably predicted blue. Now, normally, I get like 250 kids to shout this out. And I go, someone said pink, someone said blue and all that. And then I go, the psychic purple potion of Papa Toy Toy. Eduard, have you ever heard the phrase, fact is weirder than fiction?
Yes.
This is not the psychic purple potion of Papa Toy Toy.
What?
This is red cabbage tea. Take a red cabbage, chop it up, boil hot water over it, boil it if you want to. You end up with this stuff. And what this stuff actually does is indicate on the pH scale. The pH scale, do you know it?
Yeah. So you wait. So you can make an indicator from cabbage.
Yeah.
The fuck?
So take a red cabbage, chop it up, pour water, boiling water from the jug.
Yeah.
The red liquid is that stuff it indicates.
Wow.
If you boil it, you just intensify it. You just get more out of it. Then you can dip in coffee filter paper, let it dry, and you have little litmus test sheets and stuff like that.
Wow.
So it turns pink when it hits an acid, turns blue when it hits an alkaline or a base, the opposite to the acid. Purples are neutral materials like water and stuff. So this is an acid, this is an alkaline or a base. So people asked, so you do science in a van? Do you use heaps of really cool chemicals? Yes, I use lots of really cool chemicals. And my 2 of my favourite chemicals are vinegar, which is an acid, and baking soda, which is an alkaline or a base. And people always know, but always ask if we can mix them together. Now I'm just going to check. Can that camera see this?
Thumbs up.
Yep, cool. Thank you. There we go. Because we're now going to mix the two together. Oh, there should be a little bit more. Oh, there's a little bit of fizzing. Now and then it can foam up, but there's some fizzing and foaming in there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of turned more off a purple colour. So that shows us it's a neutral material. People are interested in things. I pull this out even before I say it's a psychic purple potion of Papa Toy Toy. People are like, drink it. I do this experiment and do this. And every kid goes, ugh. This now is just basically, although this is a bit more vinegary, this is just basically baking soda, something called sodium acetate and water. So it's basically water with little bubbles of CO2 in it, which is basically
carbonated water, basically.
Yes, or same as this stuff, but this is just full of water, some dodgy flavourings and colourings, and sugar that's really bad for us, especially at this time of night. I'm going to be crazy when I get home. But yeah, so that's
cool, man.
That's an experiment that fits into the realm of kitchen science. Yeah. But now I've made it this magic presentation.
Yeah.
But I never present it as magic. I always reveal it, like whatever that means. But yeah, I always like to bring it out as a red cabbage tea for psychic purple potion and do that. This box that it's made in is just me having some fun. I've made this.
That's cool.
Based on the boxes I used to see in the Science Museum of the 18th century science kits. And I've got like a little pipette here, a little set of tweezers. I've aged and weathered a book because another love of mine is prop making, model making. I made the box as well because I love making stuff. And I've made it as a little 18th century science field kit. But we don't necessarily use it. I do use this in the teacher training, and it gets some interesting comments about the storytelling stuff, and we both spoke about storytelling with cards. But when I perform this on our stage show, we have slightly bigger beakers off the material, but I still do the psychic purple potion and Papa Toy Toy, and we do a show about materials, and I do that as the opening bit.
Right.
And then at the end, the finale is mixing them together. And there's a whole heap of other stuff that happens in, but a glove inflates by a gas being produced, cans get crushed by cooling them quickly, and lots of other crazy shit. We have a disco halfway through it to explain the difference between solid, liquid, and gases, and that, and yeah.
And
that's it.
And that's a perfect way to make your brain, create this thing that a normal person would not fucking do this shit. You know what I mean? Like if anything we take away from this is just be yourself, right? Because if you try to be someone else, you're going to be second best at best. So
yeah. And like, it's like, again, what's here is, my fine art degree. What's all this psychic purple potion stuff is magic performing, all these other things that come into this are just, again, like, my art, me studying art, the skills there are in making this and conceptualizing this and working it out. The knowledge that I gained looking at stuff in the Science Museum give me the way to build this and look at it, and I think that's something we forget sometimes. It's like all these experiences we have just add in. And you say about how I was getting ready for something Magic 4. One of the routines talk about that. Like, there's two certainties in life. We're born, we die.
Yeah.
But our life, the joy of life, isn't analysed by how we was born and how we died. It's all
the
those
stuff
things in between and how all those things come together. Like, you know, it's very bizarre, some of the experiences that I have. Like, what was stuff in envelopes, the marketing team explained the marketing strategy and why the envelopes needed to be stuffed in a certain way. Who cares?
Yeah.
But by stuffing the envelopes correctly and being explained their strategy meant I kept that job, which was freaking important at that time. But then 20 years later, when I'm setting up a business, I'm like, oh, how do you market?
Yeah, it's like me with the reaction videos. It's like I did this thing that burnt out on and, wasn't happy with anymore, and then took a massive break. And it's like, well, that was a waste. No, it wasn't. Because then I have the skills and the understanding and the knowledge to make this. And then if this falls through at some point, I use what I learned here to go to the next thing. Yeah. And it's, at the end of the day, I swear I've been talking about this in every fucking episode so far, but if you enjoy the process, right, the destination will come whether you like it or not.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
The being born part and the dying part, those are the two fucking unchanged variables. It's the in-between that we actually live in, right? It's the now that we live in.
Yeah.
So you might as well live in the now, and you might as well enjoy it, and you might as well make use of whatever you have in the now and enjoy the process.
Absolutely. And and I think through trying stuff out and doing stuff, it's like when the lockdown happened for us, that massively affected what we do for a living. We are not going into schools to do science shows. So we are now screwed. Like, we are stuffed. But forget the money transaction side of it. The bigger thing is what our identity is, being these science communicators going into schools, is also took away from us. So now we have no income and we can't be who we are. So we go, ooh, there's this thing called YouTube. And we've put videos up very sporadically on YouTube and stuff. And we're like, right, let's do a live show from our shed every day during lockdown. What could be simpler? Oh my God. First of all, to go live on YouTube on your phones, you need 1,000 subscribers. So we get all our phones set up, we hit go live, it doesn't work because we ain't got 1,000 subscribers. Our first show was shot from our laptop and the webcam on the laptop being balanced on a stool in front of us. We fine-tuned that. We got that working. We got the 1,000 subscribers. We got the phones working. Now we're doing live shows from our shed, live science shows from our shed, booked by schools. They pay for it and booked by them. We've got 2 GoPros set up. We've got this control desk. We've got this computer that feeds slides and other information into it. That all goes through this control desk into another machine, another computer that is streaming our thing through whatever medium the schools want us to stream through. And it's just like,
based off that kind of unfortunate situation, you've built something out of it. See, while I was fucking around in lockdown and playing 16-hour days of the stupid ass 2D game, you were actually doing something.
Yeah, but like what I actually brought that up as like this celebration of this, like but like you know a lot more about that computer game. And like, oh my God, there was
but I mean, I can fucking put handcuffs on a guy and throw him in jail and escape jail and do all this stuff that it takes weeks to learn. But there's like 300 people worldwide that play this fucking game, and it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So, anyway, if people want to find you, where can they find you?
Best thing to find me is Science in the Van. Just
on YouTube?
Yeah. We've got a Science in the Van website. We've got Science in the Van YouTube. So find that.
Is it a scienceinthevan.com or?
It's just so I'm trying to remember. Scienceinthevan.co.nz will get you to our website. Science in a Van is a YouTube stuff, and we've got Science in a Van at Instagram as well, and Facebook.
Nice.
And that the social media content we put up is just us trying to engage with our audience, and if we think it's interesting, we hope that someone else finds it interesting and useful. So we're just sharing stuff that we see. A YouTube channel varies from the content we put up. Something that's going up soon is we've got our AV equipment that every time that needed setting up, all the leads needed to be took out, everything needed to be plugged in, everything needed to be set up, and that I've built a box for it that slides into one of our toolboxes that we use for our props. Now you just pull it out, you plug it into the wall, and everything's ready to go.
So is that like the video and you building that box?
The video is me building that box. And it's not a how-to, because no one else is going to need to build a box to these specifications to fit in the box.
But a lot of people love a lot, like, you know, there's that whole fucking what's it called, like the primitive, have you seen those primitive shelters that people build? It's just like some guy, no talking, just chopping away at wood and stacking it and making a little house and hut in the wilderness. You know, people like to watch that sort of stuff.
And this video is just, it starts with me pulling the tape measure out, measuring the box, writing it on a piece of paper. That's that's part of the process. Then there's me just sawing a piece of wood. Then there's pieces of wood coming together. There's me cleaning up pieces of wood, drilling holes in pieces of wood, and painting pieces. But it's only like 4 or 5 minutes long. So
that's what I would.
So it's all these little. Again, your ADHD friend and his snippets of stuff. It's like, I just want to show that there's lots of things that happen to make the thing happen. Yeah. But you don't need to know fully what I'm doing. And once you've seen me take a big piece of wood and make it smaller, you know, I start the cut, the video jumps to me finishing the cut. You don't need to see me saw again.
Yeah.
You know, and I use hand tools as well. I love hand tools. I make tools and stuff, and I love it.
But you don't use power tools?
No.
At all?
No. Now and then I occasionally use a sander because sanding is freaking boring.
Yeah.
But no, I use hand tools because I live in a rented accommodation. So there's limits of what I can set up. Also, I live actually quite close to people. So noise is an issue. And hand tools ain't necessarily quiet, but they're quieter than power tools. And I just enjoy it. I just enjoy.
There's like a routine of it.
It's got a nice,
from start to finish.
Yeah.
It's your own hands. Yeah.
And it's just there's no purist bullshit here. Like, now and then I do get access to workshops and I use power tools. Like, there's none of this. It's a purist way. It's the only way. But there's just something really nice about just spending time and just using that time in a way that is very nice and quiet and very sort of controlled and very cool. And it's nice to think that this stuff happens. Sometimes I am like, I could really do with bandsaw now. But everything I make is one-off. So everything I make is small. And small doesn't necessarily mean it's simple and quick. You know, if you build a shelf that is 20 foot long and a shelf that is 5 foot long, in a lot of ways, they're the same thing.
Yep.
Because you need the two supports there and whatever you make. But yeah, it's there. But yeah, I enjoy hand tools, and I've made my own hand tools as well and stuff.
Wow. You should put up a video you making your own tools. That's fucking cool. I would want to see that.
Yeah. There is a Alan Worman is on Instagram, and that is a very sort of maker focus thing. And I've got a
so ALANWORMAN.
Yeah. So I'm just checking. Yeah, I just recently changed them because
I'll put the links in the description.
My Instagram used to be Worman Alan.
Right.
For some reason, I wasn't allowed Alan Worman, but that changed. And my YouTube can be found under Alan Worman or Make Stuff Happen. And it's just me messing about in my shed. And those 15 videos I put together was just a way of me documenting what I did and what I've done and stuff. And yeah, it was a really enjoyable process of going through that thing. There's no big plans of me becoming this YouTube celebrity maker, you know?
Yeah, man, but people can see your process, man.
Yeah, but yeah, people that are interested can see it there. And I don't show me making tools and stuff, but I show some of the stuff that I've made and some of the tools.
Well, the next
that
time you make one, film it, because I want to see what the hell you're doing.
Yeah,
that sounds crazy. I've never heard of anyone. Oh yeah, I make my own tools. What?
Yeah,
you what?
It's a great process, and I only
just imagine you digging for iron. You know, just Minecraft stuff.
The first ones that I made, we heat treated the metal for it as well.
Jesus.
So like, you know, there's this. A long story, very short. I've always been into making and creating stuff, and magic has been a beautiful creative outlet and stuff. At college, I used to paint and do sculpting and print and stuff. For a very long time, I didn't really make the occasional model, the occasional Lego kit. Now and then I'd whack things together, made the shelves for the back of our van for our science props and stuff. But yeah, very sporadic stuff. 2018, I saw a course for working with hand tools at a new community shed called the Worman in town. I signed up for it because I always got to the end of my woodworking knowledge very quickly. Projects would turn into disaster, and I would rush them, and at like 9 o'clock at night, I'd just throw as many screws into the thing as I possibly could, and it'd freaking work, you know, and that kind of stuff. So I went there, but little did I know that I was going to go down this path of hand tool woodworking. And also it really rewoken the maker up in me, and things like that happened as a result of this. Now this is just MDF board, which is one up from your foam board, but your foam board is perfectly cool. I cut it all with a Stanley knife. It's all painted with acrylic paint. So it's not an example of fine woodworking, but the skills and the knowledge I learnt from that went into that, and it really reawakened my maker in me. And 2017 especially, I had quite an episode of depression. And this reawakening, this rediscovering of making and this journey of woodworking really freaking helped with that. And now I just can't stop. I'm addicted to making stuff. Like you talked about your little chop cup, and you're getting some Monty disc made, didn't you? Yeah. And the first thing I said to Eduard is, if you need a box for those.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about your addiction of boxes at that time. So
yeah, but foam core boxes don't really work for big props, you know.
I'm in a process of making a Wunderkammer curiosity cabinet, which is 6 tricks that I love, but I don't really perform. They're not really me, but I like performing them. So I've put them in this, I'm building this cabinet for them, and it's all out of wood, and it's all hand tooled and stuff. Bit of electric sanding, don't tell anyone. And but I'm building this cabinet, and the idea is that when someone comes around my house for dinner and they're interested in me being a magician, they take a dice from the cabinet, they roll it, whatever number it lands on, we open the drawer in the cabinet and we perform the trick that's in that cabinet.
That's cool.
And I'm building that cabinet now. But one of the versions of that was made out of foam board. And you know, it's weird. The AV box that we spoke about, because the box it went into was an unusual, it's got these ribs in the plastic to strengthen it. Working around those was weird. The speaker that is the main part of it is an unusual shape. So sitting down and planning that, I struggled thinking, there's so much to think about. So what I did is I just started to build the box, kept putting the speaker in it, sliding it into the box, checking it fitted, and just kept going.
Yeah.
And slowly built the box around it. This, I have an image of how it looks, but I draw it out and I work out the whole spacings and
dimensions
stuff.
And everything.
And there's quite a design drawing about that. The Wunderkammer cabinet for these 6 tricks, I just took each effect and built the cabinet around it, and 2 of them are in drawers, so I built it there. Then I built the body around it. There's another effect that stands in it, and then there's 2 other boxes that go on it, so it just slowly evolved. And with foam board you can cut and remake stuff.
That's how I did my stuff.
So it's 3 different approaches. The AV cabinet was built in this concept which they call build it in space, that you just slowly build it from your materials upwards. This was very planned and diagrammed and drawn out.
I find it much more boring to do it this way though, because once the plan's there's no you just follow the plan.
Yeah.
For me, when I do my board games, if I there were, when I was cutting for my one for this game, there was the option to just take someone else's dimensions and everything and do it myself and just cut out what they did.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, that's I'm just reading, measuring, cutting, that's not fun.
Yeah.
So I just freehand everything, just somehow ended up fitting perfectly, but I didn't know it was gonna, you know what I mean? Like I just started and just built it up, and
like I say, that's how I built the AV case.
Yeah.
But then the Wunderkammer box, I made this foam one, and I made that in space, and now I'm working that into wood. The thing I will say is working out the space of these 3 holes is something that if I do on paper, I can look at it, I can rub it out, I can adjust it.
Yeah, that's true.
As soon as you drill the 3 holes, you're buggered. So, I don't think there's a right and wrong thing. And again, back to your cards, there's 3 different ways that I've done that. I've planned a project and I've produced I've had the idea, I've gone through a process, I end up with a final thing. 3 different ways. But there was elements of this that I kind of guessed and made in space. There was elements where I sat down with the AV kit and just actually physically drew on the item of where things would fit and go.
Obviously for this table when I was making it, it was very planned.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise it would just come out looking like shit. So, when you need the spacings to be exact, when you need the circle to be exact, when you need each cup to be, we need a center line where cups are symmetrical on either side. Of course you're going to plan it.
And as soon as you get this big, whatever you're making it from, your financial investment
Yeah,
increases.
Yeah.
And at this moment in time, price a bit of wood up tomorrow, price it in a month's time.
Mm.
It's frightening how much materials are changing. But yeah, as soon as you get this big, it's got to be right. And then also, your financial investment.
100%. You cut a wrong, you make a wrong cut. You're like, oh, fuck, I got to go another. And it's just, not only that, you got to go back to Bunnings, load it back in the car. You know what I mean? It's a whole it's the mission of getting the piece of wood to your house as well as the price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a nightmare. And don't advertise that we own a van. Because now, if you own a van, make sure it's always full of stuff.
Yeah.
And also, you're never going to have your weekends to yourself. But to all the friends that I have helped move, I genuinely love you, and I genuinely enjoyed the moving experience. And pizza can get you a lot.
Awesome, man. This has been a fucking great time. Glad to have you on. And I'm sure we're going to do another one at some point.
Yep.
Dev was saying we should do a one with all three of us. I need
cool.
to get another mic for that, but eventually at some point in time we'll do that, and it'll be fun.
And like to you and Amy doing all the technical stuff, like the fact that you're using your skills to create a place for people to tell stories, and those stories are going to be recorded and, let's say, archived, I think is a fantastic thing. So thank you so much for letting me tell my story and sharing your story as well. I'm in your house, so thank you for your hospitality to you and Amy. And the fact that you're creating this space for this to happen, it's freaking awesome.
Oh, thanks, man. It's our pleasure. We've had a lot of fun.
Cool.
And now we just got to edit a bunch. But apart from that, it's going to be great.
And apparently you're giving me a lift home.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And I'm sure we're going to sit in silence and not carry this conversation on.
Amy, should we just move everything to the car? Yeah, let's move it to the car. That's fine.
Yeah, good luck working through that, guys. See ya.